This episode is sponsored by Vision Attire, our clothing brand sponsor, who have kindly dressed me today. They do active wear for men and women and competition wear for men, all categories. Go to visionattire.com.au and check them out and use discount code MuscleTalks20 for 20% off. Portion, 100% natural dog food, Australian-made dog food, single protein food company. Go to portion.com.au, use MuscleTalks25 for your first order, 25% off. Use MuscleTalks10 for 10% off with every other order. Primabolics, Australia's favourite supplement company, proteins, pre-workouts and more. Go to primabolics.com.au and use code MuscleTalks15 for 15% off your order. Let's get on with the podcast.
I dieted for 3 days and I went, how the hell am I going to sell a house, move countries, find a new house, start a new job and get ready for a competition? I went, hang on, this is a bit fucking stupid. So I wouldn't even say I pulled out. I sort of reassessed what I was doing. But bar that, I've never pulled out of a show. It's not glamorous. It looks fucking glamorous from the outside. It's fucking far from glamorous. Like I said, 3 o'clock, my alarm going off at 3 o'clock in the morning so I can be at the gym by 20 past 3, so I can do my hours cardio by 20 past 4, so I can have a shower and hull my food and be ready for my first client at 4:45. That's not glamorous. No. And then sitting there at home at bloody 6:30 doing these. Yeah. When I turn and I'm standing here like this, turn to your right. I don't just do this. Mm-hmm. I do the hands that.
Yes, of course. It's got to be.
Whether that was a bikini athlete, turning to the rear. It's all the same. It's all that this hand movement stuff. So. Yes, some bodybuilders move like bloody robots, robots. But a good bodybuilding coach will be able to teach someone how to
flash, savior of the universe, while guest posing in 2009. Gave Ray Gun a run for her money. Does a mean worm on the dance floor. Yes to Ducati. And no to a Samsung Robo automatic vacuum cleaner. To me, Rafa Nadal is the ultimate in athleticism and professionalism. You might not know who William Dunlop is. Doing it for dad. 7 years later, at 49, busting it up on stage again. Robert Miles, children. Faithless, insomnia. Josh Wink, higher state of consciousness, and the Bucketheads, the bomb. And why no one has commented on that post? Such great music. 29, 39, and 49 years old. When experience talks and bullshit walks. Please help me welcome. What happened to the Mo? Did he really sport a Mo? 3 times Mr. New Zealand overall, Mike Debenham. Yay! How are you, mate? There's your intro. What happened to the Mo? What happened to the Mo?
Oh, the Mo was a very short-term thing.
Right.
It was. We just needed to. My wife was just getting too handsy, so I just needed to fucking back her off a little bit.
I don't blame you. I don't blame her, mate.
The Mo was, as you probably are aware, Mo's a good contraceptive.
They are a good contraceptive. They are. You know what? I don't know myself without a Mo right now. I don't know why. I think I hide behind it. That's the truth be told. I think I'm just hiding behind this Mo. I don't know. I think it just gives a certain perception, and I think I keep it there to keep people just guessing for some reason what's with the Mo. and I've sometimes wondered what people see, and I think I seem to project this Johnny Depp look, like I either look like I'm on drugs, lost the plot, or I could be a good actor. I don't know, one of all of them. But
the last time I supported him, my youngest client came into the gym and he was 15 years old at the time. He took one look at me and said, "You look like a pedo." I waited till he was halfway across the gym and I yelled out, "Would you like a lolly, little boy?"
Yes.
The Mo had to come off.
It is, mate, when you talk about that, that's true. The Mo is, but the Mo was sponsored very much so in the 70s. A lot of bodybuilders had the Mo.
Yeah, very true.
And a few of the classic guys at the moment seem to be wanting to sponsor a Mo recently. Don't you think so?
Yep. Yeah. Well, hey, look, the late '90s, the goatee was the go.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
everyone had shaved head, and that was where I first shaved my head. It was a haircut of choice rather than a haircut of necessity back then. And I graced the stage with the goatee, the shaved head, and it worked. It worked. And that was back in '97, I think.
You know, that look definitely looks intimidating. That isn't intimidating.
Yeah.
A bodybuilder with a goatee and a shaved head, to me, that belongs either on the door in King's Cross or bashing someone in the alley. I don't know, mate. Or riding some kind of Harley. That's what that look is. That is. So, that's what I want to go to. I'm going to go to a screenshot. That's what I've wrote here. And I want to read this. And I want you. So it's going to be a little bit of a read, but I want you to hang in there with me, okay? So this is it. You posted this. Oh, God. It's basically when you first started. And I think your mum was tanning you at the time. And then it was 1993, 19 years old, 74 kilos, first coat of tan. And then 2014, 39 years old, 102 kilos, Australian Open Pro Bodybuilding. And you wrote, I got a laugh at the first time I said I wanted to be a bodybuilder. There were no followers or likes to keep you motivated. No strangers blowing wind up your ass to make you believe in yourself. It was just you versus you and a few real friends and family that believed in you. Being a bodybuilder didn't make you a social expert or anything because of the 25K people you don't know hinging their lives on everything you say, because you look really cool in your training videos and some hard rap music in the background, or leaning on someone else's sports car in a suit undone enough to see your abs. Judging was done on the day of the show, not for the months leading up to the show, after picking the 1 out of 100 shots where that light and the filters were perfect, obviously. To be recognized as a bodybuilder, you actually had to step up and show up and put in the hard work on stage. So many Gona bodybuilders who have built their rep on what they talk about doing rather what they have done. Tell us about that post. Then there's your mum.
And ironically, there's that photo where my mum was tanning me when I was 19 years old in 1993, and there's also another photo of her tanning me at close to 40 years old, the night before the New Zealand 212 Pro up in Auckland in the hotel room. And she's got back in the day where I owned one of the mass nutritions, and my mum, who was in her late 70s at the time, had the FKN mass t-shirt on her. She's covered in tan, standing there with FK. Mum's always there, you know. So that was 20 years down the track. She was still slapping my tan on.
Well, I think what's missing in that shot is the areas you asked your mum to shave you because you couldn't reach it. So,
no, I did get someone else to look after that.
Oh, did you? No, my mum did everything I needed, man. She was so cool. Like, do you remember? Like, because I used to get waxed back then, right? But I used to break out until I mastered how waxing should work, right? Yeah. So I used to break out a lot. So then, Vit, remember Vit? Yeah. And I remember every year, competition for me was the 1st of December. That was summer. But the real stage was the Gold Coast. Coming up to the Gold Coast, New Year's Eve, Gold Coast up there on Surfers Paradise. So I used to get my mum. I go, right, I need to Vit myself. And if I couldn't do my hamstrings or around that area, Mum, you got to come in. And she used to go, oh my God, Steve, what have you got me doing here? I said, oh, don't worry, just keep going. So it's amazing what our mums do for us.
Well, I can actually beat that, because at one period when I was single, and the only person that I had to put the Vit on my back and backs of my legs and then help me remove it was actually my, at the time, 13-year-old daughter.
What? No way.
And she still brings up, I can't believe you made me do that. She goes, I should have been arrested. She feels I should have been arrested for making her do that.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed, who is following us on all platforms, but especially here on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please, if you could do us a big favor, which helps us reach more people, get better
bigger, greater. We've already had some great guests anyway. Everyone's been a treat. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you're notified every week a new podcast that is launched. And I just want to say a big thank you. But again, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and enjoy watching Muscle Talks podcasts.
Wow.
So
I'm still wondering how you... I'm just wondering how you made her do that and how she didn't...
she's a good kid. She's a good kid.
Mate, you got a good one. You got a good one. There's no denying that. So I asked AI about you. I thought, I'm going to type in your name in AI and see what it comes up with, right? Because if you type my name, nothing will come up, by the way. But something did come up about you. So Mike Debenham is a distinguished figure in the bodybuilding community with over 30 years of experience in the fitness industry. What changed? My question is, what changed significantly now to what was the fitness industry in the past? And has aerobics died in gymnasiums? So what do you see? What are you seeing now to what we had or what was then?
Well, I suppose with that, the first post that you read out actually sort of encompasses that. When I started back in 1993, you looked around, and when you decided that you want to compete or you were going to get into whatever sport it may be, and you looked around for the person who was the best person in your town or your city or whatever, and you went, and if they coach, it's like, right, if I want to be the best, I'll go to the best. Yeah. These days, that's not required because everyone's a self-proclaimed expert, especially on social media. So, we have people that will be that want to get into bodybuilding, for example. And I even use the gym that I work at, World Gym Caloundra, as an example. So, there's myself and another trainer who's a client who was an athlete of mine, who in her own right is a great coach. As a figure athlete, bikini athlete, sorry. Mm-hmm. We're there available to these members. The gym's got 4,000 members, yet these young people will still go and follow who is most popular on Facebook or Instagram. Mm-hmm. So, do you know this coach? They got 50,000 followers. And I look at them and go, that person I know has tried to get ready for a competition 5 times and pulled out every time for whatever excuse. So I think that's the biggest thing is that, and back in the early days, and probably really up until social media becomes such, the superpower it now is that the industry has changed in the respect that people want not necessarily the results, they want the perception of results. They really don't care, what you've done. Will you make them look good? If they've got 50, if this coach is useless, never done anything, but they've got 50,000 followers and they're my coach, that means I'm going to get exposed to 50,000 people rather than focusing on maybe a coach who has a small amount of followers, who's going to do a great job, is going to get you to win, but the exposure is not going to be there. So I reckon within the fitness industry, as far as the bodybuilding world is concerned, that's sort of probably where that initial post that you read out comes from, is the fact that it's sort of like, well, what about just the results on stage? And now it's more about all the results on followers, etc. As far as aerobics is concerned, that's a really good question, because when you go around to it's dead. Yeah. And when I walked in the gym in 1993, the weights room was full of guys with a couple of girls, and then you go into the room next door, it's packed full of women doing aerobics.
We loved it.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of those people, they didn't get the results they were after, in all honesty. And it was different in the respect that there was a community with the group exercise. And you think about the 90s, there were some amazing instructors. No matter which gym you went to, there was instructors with heaps of energy, and I think it's a combination of two things. One, if you look at what Les Mills has done for group exercise, it was amazing, but it's also been now detrimental, because unless you're a group exercise instructor who's teaching 10 classes a week, it's actually too expensive for them to become a Les Mills trainer, get all the latest releases, and then roll them out for pittance pay, basically. So the instructors have moved away, and also now with knowledge, you go to the gym now. It's mainly the women train harder than most of the guys.
They do, man.
10 plus years ago, you walked into a gym, squat racks full of guys squatting heavy weights. Now you walk into the gym, there's sweet FA guys squatting heavy weights, and all the girls are pushing good weights. all the girls have got the great legs and the big muscly bums and stuff like that, which is sort of the opposite to what they wanted 20 years ago. They wanted little bums and skinny legs. So there's been a real shift in that sort of culture, and I think that majority of the time, majority of gyms, the female base actually tend to train harder than the guys, to be honest.
Well, I train at Metroflex in the Sutherland Shire, and if you come down to Sydney, we'll go there and have a workout ever, mate. You'll love it. You'll love very old school. Reminds me of Mitchell's gym. It's an amazing gym. No weight looks the same, but they are the same in kilos. It does your head in when you're so used to organised colours and organised weights. This place is literally the jungle, but it works and it pushes. Yeah. But some of the girls, I was watching someone doing leg press. She's a pro herself, little, but watching her push, I was like thinking to myself, I'll be honest with you, I'm not saying that I can't push that. I don't want to push it. She was like pushing some phenomenal weight. But I think I think like you said, back in the day, what was it? 98% guys, 2% girls. And the girls that were in there, they were a little bit tomboyish, it was kind of like a tomboyish friend. She came in, and they did their thing. But yeah, I think like everything, which is great. I'm not saying it's not great, but women have embraced it. But I think their involvement has taken also competing to another level. I think, competing is, gone next level now, where it was just open guys. Obviously, classic and men's physique came along, but now we've got the girls coming on board, and I think, like everything, I think the sport has now got a lot of eyes on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, you used to see, if you used to walk in the gym, this is going back 20 years ago, if there was a girl in the gym and she had a 20 on each end of the squat bar and she was squatting with 60 kilos, you'd be like, wow, that's a really good squat. Now these girls are chucking, they've got 100 kilos on, 110 kilos, 120 kilos, 140 kilos, and that's sort of become quite normal. Now, at the same token, when you used to go in and see multiple guys, with 4, 5, 6 plates of side squats. So be like, that's quite normal. Now you walk into a gym and a guy's got 4 plates a side and everyone's going, oh, wow. Unless, of course, you're training in a powerlifter's gym or something like that. But in a gym with 4,000 members, like where I am, I don't see too many guys chucking more than 4 plates a side on. So, when someone puts 4 plates a side on, the whole gym goes, oh, he's doing 4 plates a side. In all honesty, I probably sound a bit like a wanker, to be honest, because I sort of go, oh, yeah. Because, back, I don't do it now, I'm in my 50s, but, back at 30, 35 or even up to my early 40s when I was training with some strongmen, we were squatting weekly it was, 240, 250, 260 kilos, maybe put, every now and then we'd chuck 300 on the bar and have a crack at 300. But there are those gyms where you still see that. The powerlifting gyms and the strongman gyms, but in your general gym, your bodybuilding gyms, you really don't see it anymore. And the guys that I grew up with, when I was young and coming up in the sport, they were all like, we were still warming up at 3 plates a side. It wasn't until we got to 4 plates a side that we were starting to, all right, now we're into the working sets.
Well, I was saying to someone, because again, obviously we're showing our age, but the thing was, I said to people, I know everyone talks about, I love going to the gym. But in our day, I'm not saying we didn't love going to the gym, but I don't know about you, but gym was hard. Gym wasn't enjoyable. Gym was a job in itself, meaning you went in there to hurt yourself, if that makes sense. When we went to the gym, you go to your mate, what are we training? Legs. Oh, no. Are you serious? Legs. And but any body part, when you rocked up, you would say to your mate, here we go. Like it wasn't even a premeditated thought of, it was just like, it was a PB nearly every week. It was pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries. And also I was telling some guys recently at the gym, and look, I kind of love this new generation. I'll tell you why a little bit, but also where they kind of get it wrong is that I said to one guy, you guys are so lucky. Look at you. You're 2 guys together, but you're not utilizing each other. No one's spotting here. I'm by myself pushing failure. And you guys aren't even pushing failure, let alone, why do you come and train together? Like, what's the purpose, two of you training together, other than the purpose is a spot? You bring a mate in because you're going to get push. And I said, you getting spot, say 3 more reps or 4 more reps. I said, that's when you grow muscle. I said, that's now. And I said to them, let's just say, I said, argument's sake, it takes 6 months, 9 months to grow a muscle. If you get spotted, you can cut that in half if you want, like in a way. I was trying to give them that little mathematical equation, but they're just not, another one more thing, then they're not just not spotting. It's like trying to teach the kids today to move a wheelbarrow. No one gets it. They don't know how to spot. We weren't trained. We just went, we put the arms underneath your chest. Remember when you're doing those 300 squats and your mate was wrapped in there, like under your chest, and like they're trying to spot you on the bar, but you'd get under the chest and you go and you'd squat down with you down low, and then kind of the bicep will touch underneath just to get you that little bit up and protect you. But now everyone's trying to do that.
Yeah, but again, you know, I sort of bring this back a little bit to social media, and as much as social media is, you know, it's great for businesses and it's great for my business and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, this is where the old school of teaching has sort of been lost, because you would go, oh, I'm going to do squats, and guy over there, he's whether it's Mr. New Zealand, Mr. Australia, or he's a powerlifting champion, and they would come over and go, hey mate, when you do it, try this, and you'd listen. You know, like I had coaches when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, you know, right up, that would come over and say, Mike, do this, try that, and you'd go, oh yeah, and you'd be all ears, you know. And I had a situation happen only this week where, you know, someone was doing something, and I said, hey mate, do you realise that, you know, using the safety bar, when you use it, you should do it this way. The way you're using it, it's, you know, the canvas pushing the weight in the wrong direction. It's pushing you onto the back of your neck. Someone who's done very well in the last couple of years of training in the gym, but it was dismissed. You know, that advice was dismissed because, but you know, we're following this program by blah. I was like, and I just turned around and said, I mean, I'm sorry. I said, what would I know? 3 overall Mr. New Zealand titles, an Australian title, and 7 years competing as a pro bodybuilder. You carry on. Feel free to carry on.
And go on.
And I was probably a little bit. I was a bit rude, and I sort of probably.
It's all right.
I hope he's not watching, but I probably feel a bit embarrassed. The person's involved with the bedding industry, and I walked off as I turned around and said, hey man, if you want any advice on beds, let me know. I sleep in one every night, and I just wandered off.
Well, that's
it was a little but the reality is, it's a bit like I showed, you know, when I was coming up, the reason I ended up becoming, you know, like I was 24 years old when I won my first overall Mr. New Zealand, you know, like I was the youngest overall Mr. New Zealand at the time. And that's because at the time I had Steve Lynch, who was a 1993 Mr. New Zealand, as one of my mentors. Talking about Terry Mitsos, he actually awarded Steve the overall Mr. New Zealand 1993 at Nationals. I had a guy called Dave Smith, who was the South Island's first ever pro bodybuilder, who was also a multiple Mr. New Zealand and Australasian title holder. You know, I was looking up to people like Paul Wood, who was an Australasian, you know, champion. We had all these people that was a very small group that we had to look to for advice and direction and for influence, I suppose. So we got the best. We didn't have to filter through the bullshit, because we were like, well, these guys are winning, so they must know what they're doing. Where the young person these days, they have to filter through so much, and we've got, you know, we've got young influencers that have more clout than seasoned, proven athletes. So, you know, that's probably, I think, when we go back to that, you know, whole scenario about spotting and stuff, you know, that's where a lot of that's getting lost, because these people aren't being taught it, and they're not receptive to it. They're not receptive to it.
Well, the thing is, I remember Terry Mitsos was the one that told me what do I eat for breakfast, right? And I said, because I wanted to get bigger. He never spoke about the juice. Not once did he ever tell me about steroids, not once. He just said to me, what do you eat for breakfast? And that's when he told me to have, you know, 6 egg whites in the morning. And my parents were like, what the fuck is 6 egg whites? Are you serious? I mean, my mum even got the farmer to bring trays of eggs to our house. My mum was really working out how to fund this. But the funniest was, when I spoke to Terry, or when I walked away, people would go to me, what did Terry tell you? They didn't. And I go, yeah, Terry told me this. So we'd share the information. So it wasn't like we all knew, oh, did you go speak to Terry? What did he tell you? Like we'd kind of work on that. But the funniest was, you know, when people say, oh, you guys spent 2 hours at the gym, I say to them, it was prerequisite to spot people, mate. So in other words, there was times where a guy would come up to you and go, hey, I'm just going to do this bench press. Can you come and spot me? And you were immediately like, yeah, man, I'm coming over. And you'd go over, right? And as soon as you finished it, he'd say to you, oh, I'm going to make sure you call me. I'm going to spot you. And you go, and you kind of kept it as a guarantee. You went, yeah, all right, bro. And then you'd go and you're by yourself, you're doing dumbbell press and you go, hey, mate, I'm just about to push my biggest lift on dumbbells. Can you spot me? So we all interacted, moving around the gym, spotting. It wasn't 2 hours of fucking leg workout. It was literally at times when you sat on that bench and you're undoing your shin wraps, some guy would say, mate, do you mind if you spot me for a second? You go, yeah, no problem. Like no one went, like, why are you disturbing? That's why I think the gym was 2 hours. And we didn't have anywhere to go anyway. We didn't really worry about anything really. There was no cafes. There was no turn up somewhere. All we had was the gym. But it wasn't like we rushed in, rushed out. It was more like, I don't know, there was a lot of community going on, a lot of and it's
we're living and breathing it. Just living and breathing the whole environment. Jesus, we sound like old people.
No, man. No, we don't. We don't sound like old people at all. No, because I'll tell you why as well. I'll tell you something else. I wanted to add this thing. I found this very funny. And kudos to them, all right? But again, kudos on confidence. But tell me, Mike, what the fuck are people posing in front of the mirror with? I don't see anything there, but they're posing. I'm seeing lateral spread. I'm seeing that side chest bicep pose and leg stomps. And I'm going, what is there? I love it, but their confidence. I love the confidence, though. You know what I mean?
Well, I think about some of the guys I played league with when I was bloody, 14, 15, 16, 17, and that's why I got into bodybuilding. And I was playing with, from Christchurch. We had most of my team was made up of Māoris and Islanders and stuff like that. And some of these boys at 15 years old would still they're still more muscular than half the guys that you see at 25 that are posing now. But it's I think it's again. Comes back to this whole this perception, because in other sports we don't see you don't see the union players or the league players being so active on social media, because our sport is so visual.
It is.
And of course, so a photo is an indication of our success or our progression. So that's why we see so much of it in the fitness industry. Where if you're a footy player, you can be as ugly as sin, but if you're scoring the tries, you're going to get the contract. You don't need to be posting yourself on Instagram every 5 minutes. So look, I think that's that big difference between the sports, and again how social media interacts with different sports.
Well, I can't keep up with it, and I'm because of this podcast and my business that we do at the moment. It drives me insane. Sometimes I need to go to rehab for the amount of oh my God, it is that bad. I tell Chris sometimes it's overload. But look, let's I'm going to go back for a second. You were born in Christchurch. I'll let you know I had a house in Christchurch.
Oh yeah,
I had a house in North Brighton.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Spot, North Brighton.
And I went over there for a week to look at property, and I bought one. And I was reading the book from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he said, you can make money without any money. And I did. Don't ask me. I bought a house over there. I went for a week, and I knew Christchurch like the back of my hand. And I loved it. So whereabouts were you in Christchurch?
So I was sort of more the south side of Christchurch. So I grew up in Horsville. Yep. So I played rugby league for Horsville and Hornby. Mm-hmm. So most of the time I grew up on that south side of Christchurch. Mm. Yeah.
And so you've mentioned rugby league a few times. Did you want to play rugby league for New Zealand or play for a team? Would you have played now? Would you play for the Warriors?
To be honest, if I could have my time over again, I would have probably stuck with playing league for longer. As a league player, I had the grit, and I had the the balls to go in and tackle. I didn't care how big someone was, but I was light. I was very fit. I was super fit back then. So I was the fittest guy on my team. I was one of the fastest guys on my team, but I was a little bit light. So that was the whole reason I got into weights, because I just wanted to be heavier, and be stronger. So if I had my time over again, I would have kept playing league for a bit longer. Look, I was probably, I wouldn't have been able to take it anywhere. I wasn't that good at rugby league. There were other sports I probably were better at, but I really enjoyed it. I was part of a really good team. We were, the whole time I was playing through my age group, so I played for probably about 8 years. We were always grand finalists, and it was about at 16 when I started going, oh, I'm quite enjoying this weights business, that I started to then sort of move a wee bit away from the rugby league, and I sort of kept playing until I was about 17 or 18. But because I was fit and strong at that time, I was good. I didn't actually need to turn up to training. I'd just always make sure I was there with the boys, and I'd have my boots in the car. Mike, you got your boots? I'm like, yeah, man, I got my boots. Let's go for a run. So,
what position did you play? What position did you play?
Well, I was always a back.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say back line.
Centre or wings, because I'm only 5'8", so I'm not particularly big. But I do remember we had a couple of weeks where we had a couple of guys out in the forwards, and my coach said, "Oh, look, we're going to chuck you in the. Do you want to come into the forwards because you're strong?" And so I ended up playing second row. So 5'8", second row of bloody marking 110 kilo bloody Island boys. Wasn't much fun, but I went well and I ended up staying in the forwards. And that way, I just liked it because it was the forward. That's where all the action was happening.
Do you follow anyone in the rugby league?
Look, not massively. Not massive. I keep an eye on it. I'm not much of a sports. What do you call it? Couch sports person. I like, unless it's sports.
Come on, mate. What about Rafa Nadal? Tell us about why. Then let's go with. You know what? Let me find that question. No, yeah. Let's go. You believe, because it's on your Rafa Nadal is the ultimate in athleticism and professional. Yep. Although I'm not a tennis player, you do like to be a spectator. So what is it? Let's go to that then. You're not so sporty, or you're not right into it. You could be. Let's just say you could be. But Rafa Nadal, you've put a rule up of this man. Yeah. It must be something about him.
First of all, sports I can't do, I enjoy watching more.
Okay, that's good.
I get bored watching stuff I can do myself.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I like stuff that I can't do. I'm a terrible tennis player, and I wish I was actually quite good at it. But I'm actually
it's not easy. It's not easy, mate. It's not easy to be a tennis player.
I've got no finesse to it whatsoever. But I think this athleticism of tennis is just phenomenal. I mean, they go out there and they play. Sometimes they're out there for 4 or 5 hours. When they're playing a 5-set, tie breaks, and I just think that. So I think that athleticism, I think, is very underrated by a lot of people. Go, oh, tennis is boring. Man, how can it be boring? Watch a couple of sets in slow motion, a couple of good rallies, and you can see it's far from boring. Then when you look at someone like Nadal, he's professional in the way he conducts himself. His approach to his training. I'm trying to think of a quote where he said, I don't go to practice. I go to practice. I go to training to learn. So, and I refer, one of my biggest things is people sitting on their phone. God, we sound like a broken record. Sitting on their phone, and I go to them, get your fucking phone. Think about this. You should spend after you've done a set, spend the first 20 or 30 seconds thinking about that set, what you could have done to do better, then spend the next 30 seconds thinking about your next set and how that's going to be better than the last set you did. I said, do you think Nadal would fire 10 shots down the court while he's practicing his serve and get on his phone and have a Google or have a scroll? No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't even have his phone on the tennis court. So there's there's that aspect of it. And I just think his humanity is incredible. You don't see him spit the dummy. And if he does get a bit upset, he's generally got a pretty good reason to. There's been a few times where he's had the odd ball fly into a ball boy or something like that, or a ball girl, and you can see he's mortified, and he's the first person to run over. You just wouldn't see the behaviour that we see from some tennis players. You wouldn't see that come from Nadal, and I just think. I think the relationship between him and Federer is just an incredible rivalry and relationship, and I just think I think that's amazing sportsmanship.
It was. I was just thinking when you were saying that, and Chris, we seem to like. There's an element of stoicism with these guys. They really keep it under. They keep it contained, don't they?
Yep.
You wouldn't know if they're cracking under pressure. They wouldn't show their weakness. They wouldn't even show that emotion. Everything is like a stoic play. Everything's internal, but they bring it out the best in their play. And I think, I don't know if we ever. I mean, Djokovic is, expressive and an amazing player too, but. And the three of them, I mean, rank as were the top three. But these two guys, Nadal and Federer, so similar in stature, yet so different in background, in culture. But these two were like I said, I don't think we'll find them again. You know what I'm trying to say?
No, 100%. It's funny. I sort of, probably other sports that I really enjoy following is MotoGP, for example, because I obviously love my bikes. And, for me, Marc Marquez is just, a very similar to Nadal. Like he doesn't get dragged into the bullshit. I mean, there's been a horrendous feud between Marquez and Rossi for years and years and years. Rossi's got a lot to say about Marquez. Marquez just doesn't say anything. He just does his thing. And I love that about that. So maybe it's something to do with Spanish culture. Who knows?
But what about the? I'm going to go with this GP question in a second, but what are some of those tussles that these motorcyclists, Rossi and the rest of them, and I mean, it's hair raising. It's hair raising stuff, and the way they pass each other, like you couldn't put a whisker between them. It's just how do they do it and trust it? It's just incredible, these guys.
Yeah. It's just another level of. We got some big balls. How good was Gardner and Doohan? What about Gardner and Doohan, man? Yeah, look, amazing. It's probably a bit before my time of being, of watching that sort of stuff. So, I think that's from the history and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think at all levels, there'll be arguments that, that era was better because they didn't have all the traction control and all the electronics that the modern day riders have. But then the modern day riders also got to deal with a completely different beast of motorcycle. So there's just so much more. So and it's the same with Formula One. People talk about what the Formula One drivers are dealing with these days, and all the aids and stuff they've got, compared to what Senna and all those sorts of guys sort of had. But I think there's also they've got different things they've got to manage, I suppose, as well. So sports just evolve, isn't it? Sports just evolve.
Sport is like I said. I mean, even rugby league players. I mean, I follow the rugby league. I mean, are you a Queenslander? Are you a Queenslander?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, you're definitely maroon.
I don't know, man. We'll skip that question. We won't go there. All right, we won't go there. But tell us also, since we're talking about GP, who is I don't know, who's this William Dunlop, motorsport racer, and that post about his father passing away. What?
Yeah, so if you're looking at your Isle of Man TT.
Mm-hmm.
So the Dunlop family is a very famous family in motor racing and motorcycle racing from the Isle of Man, and they've had in that one family they've had multiple deaths. So, you've had, uncles and so forth have died. And then you had, it was William Dunlop, whose father, got killed on a motorcycle. And his son, Michael Dunlop, went out the next day and raced that very race and had to do it for his dad. And Michael Dunlop is now, without question, the most successful Isle of Man TT rider in the world. He's won it multiple times, and just an unbelievable rider. And it's a completely different sort of style of riding that they do on those road circuits compared to the MotoGP. Valentino Rossi went and did a lap of Isle of Man, and they asked him, "Would you go and race it?" And he was like, "Nah."
Wow.
Crazy, because MotoGP, they fall off. They've got runoff areas, they've got sand traps, all that sort of stuff. The Isle of Man, it's a brick wall. It's the side of 300-year-old building, and through Lotten Island and around those areas, they have these road races, and these guys are doing 300 plus k's an hour through towns,
Yeah.
where one mistake is death.
I mean, you blink and you don't see them right past. I mean, these guys are flying.
Yeah. So when we talk about sports, and people say, "Oh, have you been to the Olympia?" No, I haven't been to the Olympia yet. And as a bodybuilder, you would think that if I could go to a sporting event for a week and enjoy it, I'd pick bodybuilding. I'll be really honest, the Olympia would be quite a ways down. My dream bucket list trip is to go to the Isle of Man TT. I'd love to go camp in one of the paddocks for 2 weeks in the rain in the middle of bloody the Isle of Man, freezing me nurries off, and watch motorcycles go around the circles. And then if it wasn't for that, it would be go to the Pikes Peak and watch them race cars up the mountain. So when it comes to sport, I can be a spectator, but it's generally got to be something that I have no ability or funding or the gonads to do. Yeah.
Wow. I see your point. That you love being a spectator for those sports that you either can't do, haven't tried, and it takes a certain expertise, a certain type of person that does it. So let's talk about, you first began bodybuilding 1993, securing the junior IFBB South Island title. Tell us about that comp. And was that your first comp? Had you done anything prior, anything like that?
Yeah. So that was my first bodybuilding show, and there was an athlete competing called Damien Porter who'd been bodybuilding since he was about 16 years old, and at the time he was the teenage Miss New Zealand and the junior Australasian champion. So he was coming into the show. Everyone said to me, Damien Porter's competing, so don't get your hopes up. I was just competing to see if I could do it, really. So he was also, New Zealand bench press champion. So he's quite a short, nuggety little fella. And lo and behold, we got up on stage, and when it came to the last two standing, my name was called out in first place. The look of absolute dust on his face, because he was, let's say he wasn't a particularly well-liked person. He had a few tickets on himself.
All right.
He was very put out that this 72, 73 kilo first timer stepped up to the plate and dusted him, which I really enjoyed. So I am very competitive.
No, you're very competitive. Well, you said that you started training to be stronger for rugby league, and when you found weights, you found weights quite boring, funny enough. Let's go that, just before you competed. Yep. And if CrossFit was around, that would have been your chosen sport, because you're a PE nut, a cardio junkie. And at school, you were the 1,500 meters, running champion, I'm assuming.
Yep.
So was that, like I said, were you always competitive growing up? Is that what you were?
Yeah, I was. I just love sports. Just loved doing sports. So I said I just loved running. I love cycling. If there was probably a sport where I maybe could have, I believe that I probably could have done quite well, as I raced a couple of times in mountain biking when I was younger, and a couple of road races as well. Mm-hmm. And it was actually something that I was pretty bloody good at. It's where I probably got my good powerful legs from. But at that time too, just the investment in the equipment for those sort of sports was something that I couldn't afford. And then and it was, ironically, as I said, I was more into I found the weights boring. I joined Les Mills, was my first commercial gym, Les Mills in Christchurch. So I'd go in and do their circuits. I did the beginner circuits, then I'd do the advanced circuit, and then I'd go downstairs and I'd do the high impact aerobics. Mm-hmm. I'm relatively coordinated when it comes to dancing and bits and pieces, so I really enjoyed that. And then I started to actually lose a bit of weight. I was like, geez, I better do this, get back into this weights. So I started training, and then started, lifting weights a bit more seriously and stuff, and started to enjoy it. And then went and watched a bodybuilding competition with my training partner, and this particular athlete walked out on stage, a guy called Craig Beecroft, and the crowd went ballistic. Like, this guy, he looked like a young 19-year-old Barry DeMay. That's what he looked like. Yeah. He was just, I'm straight, but Craig was a
Yeah.
Beautiful looking dude, you know.
We can have man crushers out there now. How about it?
And the crowd went nuts. The girls went nuts, and I just went, I want to look like that dude. So that was it. That was the decision. I was like, I just want to look like Craig. And he worked at a little supplement shop in Christchurch when I think there was one supplement shop in the whole of the South Island, and he worked there. So I was and it was. I don't think the room was much bigger than about 4x4 square.
What happened?
And I'd go down there after training, and I'd go through the clothing, the big baggy pants, platinum, Mike Christiansen's platinum clothing range.
Yes, yes.
Do you remember that? Big
yeah.
on them, the big loony pants and the sweatshirts that got that cut off so your traps could pop out. So they had all that, and they sold protein powder, and they sold this new stuff that had come out. It was it was almost illegal, called creatine.
Yeah.
And I was just hanging out at the shop, and that's where Craig Beecroft worked. So we actually became very good friends. So after that, he became a little bit of a mentor. He disappeared from the sport for a while, and then one day he all of a sudden turned up on the gym, at the gym that I was working at, and was trying to get back into the swing of competing. So, and then he wanted me to coach him. So it came in a big swing and roundabouts. But yeah, that was for me. Craig Beecroft was the reason I wanted to get into bodybuilding.
So what comps did you do after 1993? Can you tell us about anything that was fond, what you achieved? Because I know you won 3 overall Mr. New Zealand titles, but is that where but did you do anything prior to that? Like, what else did you do?
Yep. So 93 did the South Islands Juniors, won it. Did the Nationals that year, got about 6th out of 9, which was a bit of a shock because I'd had one of those Saturday morning kids programs had come and done an interview with me, so that was featured, and I talked about my food and my training and all that sort of stuff. So I got 6th, so I was a bit disappointed, but if I'm disappointed, I'll just come back better and stronger next time. So then 94, I did the juniors again and defended that title, then went to the Nationals. That year I got 3rd at the Nationals, which I was pretty rapt with, because out of a lineup of about 12 athletes, there was probably only about 3 of us that were natural, and me being one of them. So
yes.
I bet a lot of athletes that were already back in 1994 using drugs, and I was natural. So I got 3rd, and I think that year I came in shredded at 75 kilos. Then my next step was, and this is back before you could do multiple classes. So like the next step from going from junior was to go into the novices. Then once you won the novices, then you could go into the opens. You could only pick one class. None of this, I'm going to do juniors first time, novice and open. And So my plan at that point was I would not do the novices until I was good enough to be an open. And that was my plan. So I had a bit of time off competing, kept training really, really hard, came back 10 kilos heavier. I won the South Island novice heavyweight title. They then that year decided to put all the class winners into the overall, so juniors, masters, novices against the opens, and I actually ended up winning the overall. So I was actually an overall novice winner. And here's a name that you may remember because it's around that right area, BJ Johns.
Yep.
BJ Johns. So he just won his pro card. So he trained back in Sydney in the day, and he was guest posing. And he told me when I did the novices, he said, "You're in the wrong class, you should be an open." I went, no, I'm going to work the ranks. So went from there, then went and did the Nationals as a novice, won the overall heavyweight Mr. New Zealand, novice Mr. New Zealand title. Did a couple of other shows, because you had 12 months as a novice from that point of. So I did the Australasians as a novice and won that. Did the Pan Pacifics as a novice, I won that. And then that was 97. Those other shows were early 98, and then I came back in 1998 as my first crack as an open competitor, and that's when I won the South Island heavyweights, the overall heavyweight, overall South Islands, went to the Nationals, won the light heavies at the Nationals, and then also won the overall. So that was my first overall Miss New Zealand. I was 24. So by that stage I was walking on stage. I had to diet my ass off to get under 90 kilos. Really struggled to get under 90 kilos. So the time I weighed in at 89.95 kilos, I was probably walking back up on stage at 93 kilos.
Wow.
So that is my first Mr. New Zealand title.
You mentioned, and maybe I might tie this in a little bit, but you mentioned natural, and I'll tell you what's funny. a lot of bodybuilders I've heard, and even sometimes you can hear it from Lee Priest. I think even a few of the goats in America say, like, if you're not competing, why are you on a cycle? Like, why are you on a cycle taking steroids if you're not competing? But the funny thing is, you told me all these competitions you've done, and you did it naturally. I'd laugh to think you're natural, meaning not that I don't think you're natural or whatever. I know you've taken stuff. It's okay about that. What I'm trying to say to you is, it's so refreshing to hear that, because did you know Milosh, until he went to America and took out everything in Yugoslavia, he was natural.
Yeah.
He took everything out in New Zealand. He took out New Zealand. He took out Yugoslavia, He took out Yugoslavia naturally and went to America to take on Americans naturally. Like, no one, everyone thought, and that's what I think the difference is with you guys and what people don't understand today was you guys really took muscularity seriously to exhaust it to the nth degree. It wasn't, you didn't take rocket fuel until you knew there was nothing, no rock left to turn, and muscularity, muscle bellies, whatever you want to call it, dieting down, competing on stage, doing a routine, posing. It was so important to you guys to exhaust every element, and that's what I've come to understand.
100%. And look, this is something I probably haven't talked about a lot publicly, and I feel like this is the right platform to do that, to do this. But I was very anti-drugs when I was a junior. I was real anti-drugs, and I had done a school project on the Seoul Olympics when Ben Johnson got done for stanozol and all that sort of stuff. So with my first introduction to, all right, I want to take it to the next level, was when I won the Novice Mr. New Zealand at 84 kilos, I think I was, and I was shredded to pieces at 84 kilos. And that was my first course. And it was a 20 ml bottle of stanozol spread out over 6 weeks.
Exactly.
That was it.
Exactly.
I think there was nothing else. There was no diuretic use. There was no clenbuterol. Mind you, in saying that, there's no clenbuterol, but back in those days, you could walk into a chemist and buy 100 little ephedrine tablets for $9.95. So yes, we were using, but we didn't, realize at that point, go forward 20 years, they were going to be turned into a street drug. But that was it. I used a 20 ml bottle of stanozol for the 6 weeks prior to that show, and that was all I used.
But also what I remember as well myself, I mean, like I said, I took my first cycle at 49. People have heard it a million times, and trust me, it was amazing. And I'll tell you what I realized doing it, and I wanted to do it as an educational thing, right? It wasn't just, I wanted to know about it, and I was very good at it. Then I studied it very carefully, meaning never had a coach, but it's on my phone. Everyone reads it, and it's like documented crazy. It even tells about vitamins, the food I was eating, calories on, and to milligrams, what I was taking. But what I realized was you guys knew when to hit the trigger and when to back it off. It wasn't like you wanted it all the time. It wasn't an egotistical thing. It was so driven on timing. It was a timing thing. It was knowing what you were locking in for, but bodybuilding never left you. It wasn't like, oh, I'm not on it, I don't go to the gym now, or I'm not on it, I don't need to train hard. It was like, even with Lee and hearing Ronnie Coleman's, and even when you look at Levrone, no wonder these guys, they couldn't wait to just train and not worry about that stuff. You know what I mean? But
100%.
But today, what I'm hearing is, and this is what concerns me, and no wonder TRT is the biggest thing going on at the moment. I mean, when you've literally squashed your testosterone to that degree, I mean, what are you expecting if you're 365 days a year pricking yourself with testosterone? What I'm trying to say is, at a young age, especially at a young age, I mean, for me, I would never give up. I would never do anything. I would not do any sport that was going to affect my sperm, my count, and not to have a family. Like, are you fucking serious? At 20 years old, you're going to tell me I'm going to take something and it could jeopardize my fertility. Like, I'm just trying to say to you, even yourself, I'm just saying, how important was it to have a family? How important was it to have children? Like, we took that into account. It was never not taken into account. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think, and what you said about picking your times when to drop the hammer was what it was all about. So I think I competed for 30 years. 1993 was my first show. My last show was 2023. Now, I just had some health test checks done. Being 50 years old, I woke up on my 50th birthday to the news of I lost a friend who was a couple of years older than me to a giant heart attack. And this guy was super fit, natural, super fit. He was one of my. He was that guy, Craig Beecroft's boss. So he owned the little supplement shop that he used to go to, and that put the fear of God up me. And I've spent since my 50th birthday, coming up almost 12 months, just like this cloud over the back of my head going, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? Has this been all worth it? Has this been stupid? So I went and got, all my blood tests and all that sort of stuff done. And, I've had a calcium score. I've had a cardioechiogram. I've had, done everything I can do to make sure I'm healthy and so forth. And after 30 years of competing at 51 years old, my testosterone is something like 24 Newton moles per litre.
That's beautiful.
Now, and it's never, and all the times when I've competed and I've got all my blood work done, so I've competed, right, it's time to compete, drop the hammer for 10 months, 12 months, and I normally plan my shows out 12 months ahead. Yeah. I compete, I come off, I go through a little bit of a whoop, which tends to be, and then 4 months later, 5 months later, go get all my bloods done again to see where I'm going, and it's always come back to normal because I get off everything.
Yes.
Where I have constant conversations with guys that are going, oh yeah, and the 27-year-olds, oh yeah, I just had my test done, and it's running at 4 Newton moles per litre, and I'm like, mate, like why? He goes, oh, I've been running tests for the last 18 months, and I'm like,
what for?
And you weigh 91 kilos. So why? Yeah. Just accept the fact that you're not designed to be a big person. I wouldn't have even thought that I was a big person, but I've been off everything for since I last competed. So we're coming up 24 months.
Yep. Haven't
touched a thing in 24 months. I'm sitting around 15-16% body fat, still at 105 kilos, still waking up every morning, with a
good heart on. Good heart on, yeah, of course.
And the reason is because I've spent more time off than what I spent on.
Good advice. Good listening here.
And even, that 1998 Mr. New Zealand title win, that next 2 years was a big push. Yeah. So I really pushed hard, and I wanted to get my pro card in 2000.
Yeah.
So I ended up, I won that Mr. New Zealand title, like I said, in the light heavy side, and weighing in under 90. Well, I won 2 years later, weighing just under 100 kilos. I then, my third overall Mr. New Zealand, which was in 2007, I'd been 3 years off everything. So and my partner at the time sort of said, oh, you should get up and compete again. I said, you know what that means? I'm going to have to go back on the again. She goes, well, why don't you try it without? And I went, no, fuck it, I will. So I walked back on stage at back at 84
kilos, mate.
Yeah, 84. The lightest I've ever been, but was still able to win Mr. New Zealand and was shredded to the bone.
Well, you said here, explained, like I asked you, explained 2007 competing, de-supplemented, you called it no PEDs for 3 years, weighing in 84, winning the overall Mr. New Zealand, quite proud. Though you said it wasn't completely your favourite look, you were shredded up, you mentioned just now. But going through the process and going back to the natural competing days, which is, I want you to talk a bit more about that. But like I said, I've turned up, I'll say, like I was ripped all through my 20s. Never took a cycle, but I was disciplined with my food, and I'm talking about so disciplined. I mean, you could call it eating disorders sometimes. You know what I'm trying to say? We do get into that movement, but the thing was when I did my first cycle at 49, and I was excited about it. To be honest, I just said, "Oh, this is going to be interesting," and it was. I did 2 cycles in a year, right? I did 2. I did like 10 weeks, and then I did another 10 weeks. The funniest was, the second 10 weeks that I did was the worst. Why? Because I tried to do more, I took more, and it backfired. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't need it. And it's such a sign. You just got to find that qualm, what just sits right. Like less is more. People don't understand that 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 was such a waste of money, a waste of that 10 weeks because I blew out, right? And it was a waste of all that effort of the cardio I was doing, the food I was doing, the exercise I was doing, because I banked it all on thinking, well, if I put more gear on, I'm going to be bigger and better. Where when I was protecting my body and utilizing it perfectly with everything else, that's when I looked amazing. So it was just amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, ironically, when I decided to approach Tony and said, can I give up my pro card and
Yeah.
would like to come back on stage, and a big part of that was because competing as a pro, you're always like chasing, you're chasing. And I had sat down in 2009 with Henny Rambold and did a session with him. Did an hour sit down and chat, and he sort of told me what the expectation would be if I really wanted to try and try and be recognised in America, and I just done the Tampa show, which was my first show. I'd done the Dallas show. I was pretty disappointed at how I looked. I spent a year working with Dave Palumbo to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I think there was some great stuff I learned off Dave, but I don't think the end portion of the prep and with the way he does things worked well for me with the high keto dieting. So when I went and sat down with Henny Rambold, and he said, look, this is how much you'd need to weigh. This is your structure. You've got a nice structure. This is what you'd need to weigh. This is probably what you're going to need to do. And I just went, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I then went back and competed again, obviously professionally. But when I decided that in 2022 that I wanted to compete, and I got ready for 2023, I just went, you know what, I'm not competing professionally. I don't need to do as much. And I reckon I took it a lot easier. I probably would have used a quarter of what I used as a pro. My whole attitude was a bit different.
Is this in 2023?
23.
I come and watched you. You know that. Yeah. I watched you. Yeah. I watched you. Look, I was there with John Torelli, and someone asked. Right. Yeah, and someone asked John Torelli, "What are you excited about the IFBB at the moment?" And he mentioned your name, and I didn't know who you were. And he goes, "Oh, I'm looking forward to watching Mike Debenham. He's come back being a pro, and here he is competing." And I didn't understand the significance of it, but he was quite excited. So was Sam. And then I did come up to Brisbane to watch you because you did the nationals as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I took a fraction of what I would say a quarter. Used a quarter, and yet I probably, in a lot of respects, look at the photos and condition-wise and muscle mass-wise.
Were you bigger then? I think you were bigger. I think was that your biggest? You reckon?
Yeah. Look, I think overall,
you look big. You gave everyone a run for their money.
Look, I think the thing that let me down once we got to the nationals, because the two guys that placed the gate above me at the nationals, I'd actually beaten in Sydney the week before. We just all got better. They got better. Yeah. So I was the first person to congratulate them. So, but I think at that point it was when I probably looked at some of those photos, I probably could see where my age was starting to creep in. My waist was a bit thicker. My glutes were a bit squarer. But I think condition-wise, and my skin on my back doesn't sit as well as it used to because I'm getting older. But in all honesty, if I could have probably bought that condition in 2024 when I did the Australian Pro with that muscle mass, I reckon I probably might have placed I might have gone up a couple of placings. Wouldn't have gone up a lot, but I might have gone up a couple of placings. But the ironic thing is that I took it sort of a little easier. I didn't actually bash myself, with the drugs. And just with, I just tried I wanted to be a half reasonable person to be around, especially for my wife. I didn't want to put her through shit, basically.
So tell me, I'm looking at you now. I can see your traps, your shoulders, your arms are huge. Like I said, you look amazing. And you told me you haven't touched anything for 3 years. And I think anyone listening should be listening to this, and myself too. I haven't touched anything since 2019. I think it was 2019, right? Because I was turning 50, right? 2019. But what I found by that experience, and you, like I said, different, but what I found was there's still more work to do, and I don't need the drugs. Isn't that how you feel? Is that because you're looking amazing? So do you still feel like there's still work to do at our age? There's work to do at any age.
Look, there is. It's harder to keep in shape, And like I said, I'm about 104, 105 kilos at the moment. Haven't, it's been 2 years since I've touched anything. And, this is probably where the sport is, does have those unhealthy things, because I'd be a liar to say that I don't probably on a weekly go, oh, everything came back really healthy. Maybe I should just have a little dabble and, maybe just get myself up, maybe the same weight and a bit leaner, or maybe I can get it a little bit bigger. So that's always sits in the back of your mind. I was also a bit concerned, last year we had a lot going on, and I suffered a bit of anxiety and depression. I was like, oh, is it because my testosterone's has crashed because because I am getting older and maybe I'm not bouncing back like I used to. Well, that came back okay. So there's always that pull. I mean, I've said I've retired. I've retired 6 times. One of my best mates, Michael Kingsnorth, sort of says I'm a bit like Johnny Farnham.
You're a bit like Rambo and Johnny Farnham, yeah.
Johnny Farnham, to come back to it, and I've said that I wouldn't compete. I won't compete again, but
who knows?
I'm not going to bet my house on it. That's for sure.
But But do you reckon? Again, your experience. Do you reckon? I don't think it's the juice you need. I reckon it's just you need probably 12 weeks of good diet. You probably could. I reckon you could lean up quite amazingly. I reckon, though you probably think about the juice. I reckon it's because diet's hard. You know that. Like it's very hard to get back into that mode of not starving yourself, but just bringing the calories down. You know what I mean?
One of the things that always keep pulling me back to competing, and I've had a few people sort of self-diagnose me with a degree of ADHD, and I think that's why when I'm competing, when I'm not competing, I'm a little bit, and I find it hard to focus. I've got, programs that I should have done yesterday, and, I should have sent out, contacted that person. When I'm competing, I become tunnel visioned. Yeah. And that's even my wife says it. She goes, you're just like this. And that's good in some respects, but it's a little bit bad in other respects. Yeah. And that's some of the reasons I like to go back. I like to compete, because for that 20 weeks, well, I'll tell a lie, 20 weeks of dieting, the last 6 weeks are a bit of a write-off. I'm a bit of a fucking zombie. But up till that 6 weeks, I am super focused. Super focused. Like, my day is down to the minute as far as got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. So I love the food that I eat. I have no problems getting the prep prepared. I just love it. I love getting up in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. It almost becomes a challenge. It's like, I bet there's no other fucker getting up at 3 o'clock to do the cardio, and be ready for work at 4:30 in the morning for their first client. So when I say I'm competitive, that's the sort of stuff that I sort of, I suppose, thrive on. I'll be sitting on a bike down the end of the gym at 3:30 in the morning. Someone will come and jump on the other bike down the other end, and I'm like, their pedals are going fast at the moment. Well, I look over and I've got mine on resistance 20, and they've got theirs on 15. I'm like, hey, fucking got you. And that's when I'm in a competitive mode. That's what my mindset goes like. It's just I just end up with this. And look, and all good bodybuilders that have been successful have that, and you've had so many people on this podcast which are high level competitors, and they would all be the same. They they just click into this other place, and I imagine a lot of them will be the same when they're not competing. And we can, Dorian's talked about how depression when he stopped competing. If we look at Kevin Levrone, we know he sort of became very wayward for a wee while, and came back. Flex Wheeler doesn't hide the struggles that he's had, post bodybuilding. The only one that seems to always have a smile on his face and is the most busted up of all is Ronnie Coleman, and he's
well, he's a bit of
it's just a different breed.
Well, he is a different breed, but what happened? Have you had depression before? Have you had that feeling before? What was it, or was it the first time?
I just get lost. No, it's happened many times before. I get lost. Like I suppose to a degree I suffer a bit of they call it imposter syndrome.
Right. Tell me about it.
Yeah, and I would say that most of my life I've suffered imposter syndrome, but not when I'm dieting for a show.
Okay.
When I'm dieting for a show, I know how good I am. I know how hard I can train. I know that I'm better than anyone else in that gym. And I don't have to compete against them because I just know it. So I just go about my business and do my business, and they can watch from the sidelines. When I'm not competing, I start going, oh, I wasn't that really that good. You know, that guy over there is probably better than me, really. To be honest, look, the guy over there, if he diets for 12 weeks and gets some shot, he'll probably be better than me. You know, the reality is he's not. You know, you got third in a novice, regional show. But that's how my head works. So it's almost a bit like competing becomes my safe space. I've been on stage. I can't remember if I can count exactly how many seasons I've done, because some of the seasons have had multiple shows in them. But I know I've been on stage, I think, about 55 times to be judged. And I've never pulled out of a show, ever.
Wow.
Not once. With the one exception was about a week before we moved from New Zealand to Australia. I went, I'm going to do the Australian Pro Show. And I dieted for 3 days, and I went, how the hell am I going to sell a house, move countries, find a new house, start a new job, and get ready for a competition? I went, hang on, this is a bit fucking stupid. So I wouldn't even say I pulled out. I sort of reassessed what I was doing. But bar that, I've never pulled out of a show. And I watch and I listen to a lot of athletes, and some people have some pretty, some people have some real honest reasons why they're pulling out of shows. But there's a lot of people, I'm pulling out because of this reason, that reason. I'm like, oh, well.
So is it quite common? Is it quite common, this pull out of shows?
Oh, yeah, look, and it is. I look at sometimes, when people
what do you think cracks them? What cracks them? What do you reckon? What's the common thing?
It's not glamorous. It looks fucking glamorous from the outside. It's fucking far from glamorous. Like I said, 3 o'clock, my alarm going off at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I can be at the gym by 3:20, so I can do my hours cardio by 4:20, so I can have a shower and hull my food and be ready for my first client at 4:45. That's not glamorous.
No.
And then sitting there at home at bloody 6:30 doing these.
Yeah.
Then going, oh, hang on, I'm going to go for another hour walk. Grabbing the dog and going for a walk. So that's where it's not as glamorous as it looks. On social media, it looks really, really glamorous.
It does look glamorous, man.
And just being able to go hard enough. Like I've seen some physiques. I go, man, awesome, but man, they just need to go fucking harder. They need to be tougher on themselves. They need to hurt more.
Yeah.
So I love listening to you interviewing Milos, and I love listening to him because he's old. He's pretty old school, and especially coming from a place like Yugoslavia. So those guys were just tough.
No, they were tough. No, they were tough.
And I come from one of my mentors, Steve Lynch, who won the Miss New Zealand 2020 and 1993. He just said sometimes you sit on the bike until you're basically on a stationary bike until you can feel your ass doing this on the seat, and you think, "Fuck, I'm going to fall off this if I don't stop." And you just don't really see that anymore.
No. Well, I think no, you don't see that. But I just want to ask, this imposter syndrome. Like, I think I can resonate with you, and do you think it's something in our youth, and do you think it gets worse when we get older because we have expectations on ourselves, or the competition seems like the world's relentless at the moment? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Where does this imposter syndrome come from, and why is it affecting you so much? Where I can agree, I have imposter syndrome. There's no denying that. And I think I do hide behind it with my moustache, my earrings, and my mullet at the moment. Who knows? But the thing is, anything to get away with it sometimes.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I think, look, even when I suppose when I first wanted to get in the fitness industry, first wanted to work in a gym, it took my father probably close to 10 years to accept that this is actually a real job.
Oh, right. There you go. Yeah, that could be that.
But when are you going to get a real job? I can get you a job for certified concrete, driving a concrete truck. You work for them 20 years ago. I can get you a job driving a concrete truck. When are you going to do a builder's apprenticeship? And it wasn't until I had a few clients who were very, very well-known people in Christchurch, and he's like, oh, you train this person. You train Paul Kelly. Paul Kelly is a massive car dealer in Christchurch and property investor. Oh, you train, Kevin Mara, who was, a CEO, one of the CEOs of the Christchurch City Council, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, these people pay you to train them, and it took a couple of those people to go, oh, Jesus, your son's good at what he does. He's one of these. You realise he's one of the best in the country. Like, he's regarded as one of the best in the country. And then at that point, then even my brother stepped up and said to my dad, he's, people around the country want to work with him. That's how good he is. And then when I finally ended up buying a gym, it probably resonated there when, I had a gym where we had 900 members, and, me and my ex at that time we had the group exercises back in the mid late 90s. He sort of went, oh, okay, right.
This episode is sponsored by Vision Attire, premium Australian active wear for men and women, including comp day wear for all male divisions. Their men's physique shorts are tailored for the stage with quick dry fabric and a cut that brings out your taper. Visit visionattire.com.au and use code MuscleTalks for 20% off. Portion 100% natural, single ingredient Aussie dog food. No fillers, no nasties, just real high protein treats like kangaroo jerky and goat trotters. Go to portion.com.au, use MuscleTalks25 for 25% off your first order, and MuscleTalks10 for 10% off all orders after that. Primabolics, Australia's most trusted supplement backed by full clinical doses. Whether it's protein, pre-workouts or health support, they've got you covered. Visit primabolics.com.au and use MuscleTalks15 for 15% off all your orders.
So this is actually a real industry.
So yeah, look, I think it's today. I don't think anybody, like, you can tell your parents, I want to be a PT, and they're all like, okay, what are you going to do after that? Like, how long are you going to do that for? I think it is. I was a PT, just to let you know. I did the proper course, but I was a network engineer, so I didn't even train anyone. I just did the course because I thought I might do it as a hobby, and I didn't really take it on. But you said you had a gym. How come you don't have a gym now?
So I've owned two gyms.
Okay, tell us.
So back in the 90s, the mid-late 90s, I was managing World Gym in Christchurch.
Okay.
And the owner of that gym, who was based in Auckland, he used to own all the World Gyms in New Zealand, and he was getting rid of them one by one. And it got to Christchurch was the last gym he owned. And we had a bit of a disagreement about some stuff. And he said, well, if you're so passionate about it, why don't you buy it off me? I'm like, I'm 22 years old. I own a car. That's it. So he vendor loaned me into the business. So he linked me the money. Obviously, I was a pretty nasty interest rate back in the late 90s.
Of course.
To buy the gym. And at the time, my ex-wife's father had a pretty successful building company, so he sort of put some working capital into a bank account for us, so we could, we weren't starting with a zero balance. We actually had a little bit of money to turn things over, and it went great guns there for about 2.5 years. And then unfortunately the Christchurch fitness scene, the Christchurch we call it the council, and went and dropped 20 million into a couple of facilities around the city, community gyms that had swimming pools and the gyms and saunas, and then it was being council owned. Their pricing was ridiculous.
Oh, right.
About 7 or 8 gyms went bankrupt. I was lucky, by the skin of my teeth, I was able to sell to a big player.
Yep.
And my lease was up, and he took over. So we basically didn't renew the lease. He took all my equipment, took all my and relocated it and expanded his gym, which was a big facility. To about a 6,000 member gym. And then I worked there for the next 11 years until I moved to Australia. Partly as a contract trainer. Part of that time I was in management. And then I got the opportunity to be a part owner in a gym in 2018, which I got involved with. One of those situations where you don't get involved in business with friends. And then after about 1.5 years, just about 3 months before COVID, I went, this is really not working for me. So I got my money back out of that business, and then COVID came along. So it was great. It was great timing, to be honest.
Oh,
And,
that was good timing.
yeah, and look, to be honest, the fitness industry is bloody tough, and you've got some massive players. I work for World Gym, and I love the World Gym brand probably because I had a World Gym back in Christchurch.
Yeah.
John Davies is a great guy. I get on well with John. The owners of our gym, we got new owners, previous owners I got on really well. So I'm quite happy. I don't want the responsibility of staff and dealing with 4,000 members that are moaning and groaning their ass off. Stuff that I'm getting too old for it.
Yeah. Well, so you came to Australia in, what was it, 2011, and it happened to be that's when the earthquake was. I had sold my house by then, by the way. I thought, I sold my house.
You were lucky. You were lucky. Well, possibly lucky. You could have got a good insurance payout. Especially being North Brighton.
Was that hit hard? Was it? Was that hit bad?
North Brighton was hit really hard.
Really?
Mm.
I did not know that. Oh no. I sold way before.
Yeah.
Way before the earthquake. What was that like, knowing, because you were going to the airport pretty much?
Yeah, we're on our way to the airport.
And why were you coming to Australia? If you don't mind me asking, why were you coming?
The previous sort of 18 months, I had a failed marriage. Started dating somebody new. At that time, I had owned a gym. I was the IFBB event organizer for the South Island.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Yes, go
on. So there was all these things, and I just basically, Christchurch was getting too small. I had my daughter when I was at high school. She was in her last year of high school, and me and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we come over here for a holiday over to Mooloolaba, and we're sitting there in June in t-shirt and shorts, going, look at this, imagine living here. And we just decided, you know what, we're going to make it a goal to move to Australia. So that was, and I would have moved to Australia probably years ago, apart from the fact I had a daughter when I was young at high school. So that's what made us move to Australia.
What's it like leaving behind your home and taking that leap of faith? I mean, I've never done it. I'm always quietly envious of people. Like I think about moving to Queensland, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm seeing someone who's up there actually, and I still don't know. Like, it just seems so foreign. I don't know why, but it's
look. It was okay. Probably the hardest thing. My daughter finished high school. She was off at university, so she was in university in the North Island anyway. So she was living out of Christchurch. My family was spread out. I had a brother that had been living in Australia since the 80s because I'm the baby. I had another sister lived up the top of the North Island. I had another sister who was at that time. Where was she? She might have been living in Australia as well. Mm-hmm. So 5 kids, and we're all spread out. So, and my parents didn't live in Christchurch at the time either. So the hardest thing for me was to actually, I've got 3 really good friends, really good mates. Was actually the hardest thing is that these 3 mates who I would see multiple times a week, not seeing those guys anymore. And that's still one of the hardest things. When I go, my parents are in their 80s, so it is hard to say goodbye to them and so forth, but I still have the same 3 friends.
Wow.
That, when I got to say goodbye to them, I'm like, man, and I find that the hardest thing because we're all very, very close.
So what was it the weather that brought you to Oz?
Weather.
And go on.
Mainly the weather. And I just wanted a fresh start. And my partner, my girlfriend, who was Julie, my now wife, she was a wee bit the same. She'd been with a guy for 13 years prior, heavily involved with the motor vehicle industry and motorsport and rallying and stuff like that. And she was just a bit like, man, just be nice to go somewhere where we can just start afresh as a couple. So
how old were you?
We're both mid-30s, but we'd only been within 14 months of starting to see each other, we had bought a house, renovated a house, sold a house, and moved country.
Wow, that's pretty good. No wonder you're together.
Yeah. And since then, we've done about 7 houses. I think we're near 15 years and on house number 7 or something. So something stupid like that.
What, you renovate them?
Yeah. So
I didn't know that was part of your hobby. I've done a few houses myself.
Yeah, it wasn't sort of an intentional thing. It just sort of, it's the way it's happened,
So what do
you
you
know.
do?
And
So what do you do, Mr.
just face
Property Guru?
just facelifts. So we can look at come walk into something that looks pretty fucking tardy,
Yep.
and turn it into something that's that's quite nice. And we've both got the skills. She's a good tiler and painter. I'm not bad on with a hammer. The room I'm sitting in at the moment, which is my massage clinic, is actually part of the garage, which you would never know. You'd think you're sitting in a commercial massage therapist
So,
space at the moment.
so you get on the tools, do you?
Yes, yeah. So I enjoy that.
Yeah.
So it's probably one of those things. If I go, oh, fuck, I wish if I was younger, I'd probably go do a builder's apprenticeship. To be honest.
Yeah. I look. I've renovated. I've definitely built a whole house. I got no building experience, but I learnt it on the job. I learnt it at the time.
Yeah.
I learnt about LVLs and I learnt about UBs and UCs and universal beams, universal columns. I learnt, you name it. Learned to nearly do punch-ons with tradies. Like it was, it was a lot of fun. But also, how scary was it? I just want to know, you were there at the time with the earthquake. What was that like? Because New Zealand's never had an earthquake like that.
Look, we had,
Oh.
but not in such a densely populated city, and not for a very, very long time.
And it took a long time for Christchurch to come back. That one really did. That hurt Christchurch.
Yeah, and there's still areas of Christchurch that still haven't been touched, that are still
Wow.
got 40-foot containers surrounding old buildings and stuff like that in the central city. It was unbelievable. We were in a car, so we didn't probably feel quite that full force of the quake, except for I thought my mate's wheel had fallen off his four-wheel drive. I thought we hit something. I thought it was nuts on his wheel had come off in the wheel. I was waiting for the wheel, watch the wheel take off down the road, and the lamppost just doing this,
God.
and cars bouncing out across the road. But we'd been experiencing some pretty nasty earthquakes for a few months before that. So we had a big earthquake in September, which we all thought was the big one. Then we had all the thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of tremors. And every now and then one of those tremors would be big. But we all thought that September earthquake we had was the big one until the February earthquake. And then that was devastating. I mean, I lost people that I knew. A good friend of mine lost his fiance and his unborn child in a building collapse. So I lost a couple of clients that were in the CTV building, which was where about 100 people got killed. The principal of the English school in that building was a client of mine. My doctor's surgery was in that building, so my doctor got killed. Everyone knew somebody that had been killed, to be honest. And when it happened and we realised the planes weren't leaving, the airport got shut, I had a sister that lived about 80 k's away. It's like, right, let's grab my mate's car. And he said, you can take my car, because he's a cop. So he said, I'm going to be flat out. He's going to be, working, be 24-hour shifts basically. So he said, take my four-wheel drive. You can go down to your sister's. And when we're driving out down to my sister's place, we have to pass a military base, Burnham military camp, and it was like a war scene. Just all these armored vehicles, just all fucking heavy, streaming down, everything. Those sent everything, because in Christchurch they put a perimeter around the whole city, and it was like a war zone.
Yeah.
Every street had soldiers standing there with machine guns and police standing there to stop people coming in and looting the city, and people trying to get in, because at that point people were still missing, and people were like, my wife's in that building, I need to get into that building. It's like, no mate, you can't come into this area. So it was pretty harrowing.
It was, like I said, because I've been there, and it's obviously the same design. The person that did South Australia, which is Adelaide, did New Zealand, city of
Christchurch.
Christchurch, sorry, city of churches, and just like I said to you, and Australia really sympathised with you guys and also felt it. Like I remember that was just surreal and unbelievable. You can't, to the magnitude that it was. Yeah,
something that it's hard to explain what it's like to be in that situation with an earthquake. And we had one of the aftershocks of the September earthquake. So this is before the February earthquake. I was in the gym when it happened, and it clean picked me up. This is just an aftershock. It clean picked me up and threw me 4 meters across the room. And I'm watching the mirrors in the gym go,
No way.
and a couple of them just went, boom, just fucking exploded glass everywhere, you know. Um, every time there was an earthquake, the building that I worked in was an old wool store that had been converted into a gym and a Harvey Norman's. So every time we had an earthquake over a certain size, we weren't allowed back in that building until the engineers had come, checked the building out, said, all right, yeah, all guys are good to go back in. So through that period, me and my wife were losing, our girlfriend at the time, our wife, we were losing lots of money with business because she owned a beauty salon in the same building.
God, I mean, like I said, it was just, yeah, you just couldn't believe it, and especially what I knew. Christchurch was never the same after that point. I don't know if it's where it is now today.
No, it's look. There's some aspects of Christchurch now are bloody amazing. Some of the architecture they've come back with is just phenomenal. It's beautiful. But Christchurch was famous for its old buildings. Very much like Melbourne, Melbourne buildings as well. And a lot of those are gone. So that's a shame. But what they've replaced it with, they have put a lot of thought and effort into them. So you've got to give the guys that are rebuilding Christchurch their kudos for doing that.
Without what's the property game there like? I'm just, because I'm a property, that's why I bought property. Is it still quite affordable there or not affordable anymore?
Look, I think it's gone. I couldn't tell you. We actually went back after COVID for a year. We bought a house and we bought that at a really good price. Then I sold it 8 months later for a silly fortune, and I was rapt about that. I would not get that same money for that house now. So I think the Christchurch property market went like this, as everything did in COVID, where Australian property markets are still doing this, and here in Queensland they're still doing this. Where I think the Christchurch market went post-COVID, and then they got to a point probably and have done a bit more of this.
All right.
So, and even my parents at that a few years ago lived in a quite picturesque part of New Zealand, and they retired. They were, they're in their 80s, and they needed to move closer to the city, and they bought a house not far out of Christchurch, and what they paid for it 3 years ago, I don't think they would get that same money for it now. So I would almost say that some aspects of Christchurch and New Zealand's property market has actually gone backwards a little bit.
What's the property? What's the average price there now, you reckon?
In Christchurch?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
Okay. I'm not going to use you as my financial advisor for property.
No.
So you like your 90s music, I noticed.
90s electronic music, absolutely.
Yeah, a bit of and you did a good job with The Worm.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Did you break dance? Something tells me you break dance, mate. You break dance, didn't you?
Not huge. No, not huge. I can move. Put it that way.
You can move.
Some pretty good rock and roll dancers in my family, so I can hold a beat. So put it that way. So I wouldn't say no. I'm not going to rock the socks off anyone, but they'd also probably be pretty surprised to see a guy of my size and my stature move the way I do. But
well, look, I'm going to talk about, again, with AI, it said to me, beyond his competitive achievements, you have dedicated yourself to coaching, producing multiple international, national, and regional champions. So tell us about that, and who's some of your proud standouts in the competing world? Because I have noticed you do have some competitors there that you're doing a great job with.
Yeah, look, probably the one athlete that I started his career, he was my training partner. He got brought into me as a young 18-year-old rugby player, as a Christchurch boy, got by the name of Steve Orton. And Steve Orton, he won NABA Mr. World. No one in New Zealand's touched him, to be honest. He competed in Australia while he was still an amateur. He competed against Nick Papadopoulos down in Melbourne.
Yep.
And Callum Van Mogen. So he competed against those, and he ate those guys up. When he went pro, he competed in the Arnold's in Australia, and I think he placed 5th or 6th. So he beat pretty much all the Australians and all the Kiwi, a few Kiwis and a few Americans that come over. So he was probably, and he sort of stepped back. He's just focusing on his coaching and looking after his health and stuff a little bit better. Sort of realised he'd probably reached his potential. There's so many athletes. Probably a recent one who I'm hugely proud of. would be Jess, from down in Sydney. She's won, multiple shows, both in figure and then she did a bit of last year, did a bit of a jumped in the physique as well and did really well in there. So Jess Coughlin. So, and she came from a very strong CrossFit background. I've had a couple of New Zealand pros that I've worked with that I took to America. So I've coached tons of people. I'd hate to sort of bring too many people up and miss people, to be honest.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
But we've had some really good successes. I've had Open Australian champion winners, under 80s, Andreas Rodriguez. I've had a couple of masters, including myself, but also a couple of masters Australian champions.
Yep.
Jeff Gray. So yeah, there's been got a couple of people competing at the moment. Just had a client just win the masters figure at the NABBA Queenslands. So Jade Perrin. So yeah, lots of I've trained probably hundreds of people over the 30 years.
There was a moment where you did a post where you seemed a little disappointed, a little bit kind of dejected. You didn't want to continue coaching, or whoever you had, and you weren't going to take on clients anymore. Has that changed?
Yeah. No, look, for this year, I've really kept my team really small.
Yep.
The people that were already working with me, I'm still getting them ready for shows. But I needed a year I needed to step away for a year.
Yep.
I had a couple of athletes who I did extremely well with over the last 2 or 3 years who, people move on, and that's cool. But it's how people move on,
Right.
and the reasons for why people move on. And I had a couple of clients who moved on that I just could not understand. I was like, what did I do wrong? And there were a couple of people that I sort of poured my heart and soul into. And this year has been a year about learning to go, you're just an athlete. I hate to say it, but you're just an athlete.
Yeah.
You're not my family.
Yeah.
I'm not going to treat you like my family anymore, because I have done that. I've treated people like my family. I've had a young athlete once who I basically treated like a daughter, and eventually it went back, sort of went a bit bad. I had someone who I won a novice national title with, and all we were doing was talking about the future and about going to opens and then going into potentially pro. And then out of the blue, he decided to use an overseas coach to try something different. It didn't bode well with him. It destroyed his health. The person geared him up to the eyeballs, destroyed his health, made him very unwell. And I hope to see that particular person, who I'd become quite close with, to regain his passion and where he was. I had a physique woman who had some demons and in an abusive relationship, who again we did extremely well with, and then she just and I just went, what am I doing wrong here? I felt like I was doing everything right, and my wife was like, you're just giving these people too much. You're giving them too much of yourself. So yeah, last year I went. Was it last year? It was the end of last year. I just went, you know what? People who are in my corner at the moment, I'll carry on working with, but I'm not taking anyone else on for 2025. Which means I have 2 athletes for season A.
Yep.
I have 1 athlete who's going to do the IFBB Naturals in season B.
Yeah.
And I'll probably have a handful of athletes for season C next year. Season C at the end of the year, and then I'll reassess. I'll reassess.
How good is this? Is it exciting? The IFBB, the natural comp in the middle of the year, is that an exciting time?
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential. I think, we've got a lot going on with the federations at the moment. I think the federations all involved just need to focus on themselves, focus on what they're good at, and not worry about what the other federations are doing.
Oh, it seems like it's going on at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, if that federation over there doesn't like what that federation's doing, so they're going to do it differently, it's cool. Just go and do it different.
Yeah.
Leave that federation alone, and vice versa. You know, so, there's a lot of that going on at the moment, and through all the years I've been involved with bodybuilding in the different federations, and been involved with judging and running shows and all the political stuff. And when IFBB and NPC did this, and they did that, the weekend basically that it happened, I had Phil Heath in Queensland. I was looking after him because I brought him to Queensland to do a seminar. So we had Phil trying to align, be supportive obviously of the NPC and the IFBB Pro League as it was just being developed. But we had the Grahams here with the IFBB original. I guess so I got super messy, and I just went, I just don't want to be part of that drama anymore. So part of my decision of not taking any new clients on for this year, any new clients for this year for competing, was basically just to almost defrag myself. We talked about it before, defragging yourself from social media. I wanted to defrag myself from bodybuilding to a degree.
You were an organizer, a promoter, a judge, and you judged the Australasians under the Graham banner, which you said you did enjoy. But at one stage you stepped away from the IFBB in the 2000, and you competed for NABBA. You did Mr. Universe. You came 6th, and you did Mr. World. How was that time? And what because you said you weren't happy what was going on at the time with IFBB. So what changes? How do these things happen?
Oh, look, it was a really interesting time because NABBA had done that as well. So we had multiple NABBA federations.
Oh, not that too. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so that happened in 2000. It had something to do with, and NABBA in New Zealand at that point was aligned themselves with NABBA NAC, which is the National Athletic Commission in Germany. And then you had NABBA in Birmingham. And that was all created from an argument caused by someone, by an Australian, I can't remember the names, but it was an Australian who had been the president of NABBA, who then did a wee stint inside in the late 90s. And then he came out, wanted to take back over, and, it got really messy. So for me, the reason I stepped away from the IFBB back in 2000 was we had a president who was a bit of a hypocrite, to be honest, and it was all around getting money out of the Hillary Commission, which is a big commission organisation that puts a lot of money into sports and stuff in New Zealand. It was all, I'll be really honest, it was all around trying to get the bodybuilding, the IFBB, into the Olympics. So they were drug testing everybody, and this one particular president who was pushing this was basically trying to create what an incorporated society position. He wanted to get the funding from the Hillary Commission so he could be running the IFBB as a paid position. That's all it came down to. So it got really ugly, and a number of us sort of went, we're just a bit over this sort of stuff. We're here as bodybuilders. We're trying to win Mr. New Zealand's, and overall we want to go pro. We know what we need to do that. But now we have this Hillary Commission sitting over top, who pumps all this money into even Olympic sport, going, okay, well, that's fine, but you need to pass all these drug tests and all that sort of stuff. It was just never going to happen. It was just like, it was all very hypocritical. So,
did you enjoy being an organizer, promoter?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Yeah,
Why don't you do it now?
Absolutely.
Why don't you do it now?
Oh, look, if the opportunity arose, I would, but things are a bit different now as well. I would have, if I'll be real honest, if Tony had been looking for someone in Queensland and John wasn't available and he said, Mike, would you help us out? I would have been 100% into it.
Okay.
But John is a great promoter.
Of course
John also has he packs a punch in the business world here in Queensland. And being a promoter these days is a bit different to what it was back then. In the respect that you need some financial backing behind you.
Yeah.
And whether I would put that risk, I'll put that on the line to do that or not. I don't know if I would or not. I'm sort of at a point where, and content is a terrible word because it sounds like you become lazy, but I'm starting to quite like my life now, the way it is, without extra stress.
Well, you've got a Ducati, mate.
Well, that's the thing, and I helped the IFBB backstage, the Pro League backstage, and I helped run the Queensland, make sure everyone's where they need to be, when they should be there, and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, good.
And I really enjoy that. And if I happen to be at a national event, I will be the first person to put my hand up and say, Tony, mate, I'll get backstage and make sure I'll herd the cats for you. And he's like, sweet, he knows that I do a good job. In fact, whilst we're talking, I just saw I had a message come up from John's daughter. She'll be asking whether I'm going to be at the show, in a fortnight's time, which I will be. So yeah, I do enjoy being part of it, but I also don't really want to get involved with the politics too much anymore either. And I love judging, and I think what the move of trying to make sure that any judge is not a coach, I think is fantastic. I think bodybuilding for a period of time was so small that we couldn't help it. We ended up with some people who were coaches. Well, you're Mr. New Zealand. We'd love to have you on the judging panel. But of course, I'm going to be coaching people. So, it was hard to do. But I think, if I ever got to the point where I stepped out of the industry, stopped coaching people, that one of the first phone calls I'd probably make would be to Tony and go, mate, I'm not coaching anyone. Let me be a judge again.
Oh, you'd like to be a judge, yeah? I find that it's not as easy as it sounds.
It's not. It's a long day.
That's what I was going to say. You guys literally, you'd need something to up you, because I mean you're there checking things out constantly. You've got to be on the eyes, watching, and you could make a mistake at any point. You know what I mean? It could cost anything. So like I said, it's literally dialing in the whole day. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it is. And it's a different sort of. When I was judging, you'd mentally be stuffed at the end of a competition. You're like, oh, man, my brain hurts.
Yeah.
Me running around backstage, herding cats and making sure no one's running off when they're supposed to be lined up walking. I'm more physically drained. Yeah. And I have a good laugh with them, with the people backstage. I mean, I basically, it's like I'm a sergeant major. Don't you fucking move. You stay there. I need to go to the toilet. I don't care. You stay there. You're about to walk on stage, And Jim, most of the people we have a good laugh with, and I always have people come up afterwards and go, "Oh man, that was awesome. Thanks very much for all your help." So I just enjoy that. I enjoy giving back to the sport.
Well, the sport looks like it's growing exponentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear people go, "Oh, it's not what the sport's. It's not what it was." And look, there's aspects of it that aren't. But there's aspects of it which are fantastic,
Look, at the end of the day, I think, like everything, it's not immune to being a business and looking where its revenue comes from, and also KPIs. Each year, you want to be bigger, better. I mean, the girls' influence is big. I mean, the girls getting involved. I mean, we need 3 days just to watch bikini. I mean, we've got to sit there for about 3 days nearly now. But that's a joke. I thought it was funny, but it wasn't very funny. But having said that, but what is who's your favorite bodybuilder ever? Like, it can be overseas, it can be anyone. Who's your favorite bodybuilder
ever? My favorite bodybuilder ever. I have probably a few for different reasons.
Go for it.
So. As far as physiques are concerned, for me, Lee Haney, Barry DeMay, I love that era and that look, which then probably brings me through to, Lex Wheeler, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I am a big fan of Phil Heath. I think Phil's got an amazing physique. I've got a huge poster at the end of this room that he signed for me when I brought him out to Queensland.
How did you bring him out? How did you bring him out?
Well, that's what I was helping. I'd been helping out the Grahams backstage when, unfortunately, Paul Jr. had passed away, and he was running the backstage. And so I'd been helping the Grahams, helping Carol, and she rang me and said, "We've got this opportunity. Would you be interested?" So it cost me a small fortune, and I paid for him to come out from Sydney to Queensland. Kept putting him up in a hotel for a couple of days, run a seminar with him, hosted it with him. And that was a great experience. One of the best experiences of my bodybuilding career, to be honest.
Yeah?
It was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. It was really cool. I got to sit down and have breakfast with him and lunch with him and dinner with him and just talk to him like he was a mate. And, and
what was he like? What was he like?
He's cool. He's cool. A lot of people go, you hear, oh, he's a bit arrogant. He's not arrogant. He just doesn't take any shit. If you're going to throw a punch at him, he'll throw one back.
Yeah.
And he's smart. So when he throws it back, it's going to baffle you. And you go, oh, he's arrogant. It's not he's arrogant. He's just smarter than you. That's the reality. When you try and have an argument with someone, the automatic thing is, oh, they're arrogant. It's like, no, they're just smarter than you.
So talking about
he was fantastic.
So talking about packing a punch. Sorry to disturb. Again, look, he looks. I think he seems like a cool guy. I mean, he seems like a cool cat. Talking about punching, you did Muay Thai and you got in the ring, mate.
Yep. So you love that. One of the best sporting experiences of my life. I would say to people,
Tell me about it. I want to know about this.
I would, apart from, I actually think that was probably, yeah, it was one of the highlights of sporting experiences I've ever had. Because, when I get on stage to compete with someone, we flex and whoever wins, wins, and you congratulate them, and hopefully that's me that they're congratulating. If not, well, no big deal. But, when we're on stage, we're posing together, we're knocking elbows and stuff like that. When you're in a ring, the person wants to kill you. They want to knock you out.
Yeah.
That's it. And you're doing everything in your might to knock them out, and I think there was but the respect afterwards was huge. One of the guys I fought was a pretty aggressive aggressive fella, and I was 35 when I fought, and I think he was only about 24. So again, he bounced a little bit better than I did, as far as being a bit younger. And yeah, it was just a great experience. I wish I'd taken it up years ago and actually really put a lot of effort into it. But bodybuilding got into my blood, and everything was about bodybuilding.
How long did you train Muay Thai before you decided to get in the ring?
So on and off, I'd been doing boxing, Muay Thai, bit of karate. I did a lot of swaps, Taekwondo. I did a lot of swaps with people. So I had a guy, Steve Cox, who was a New Zealand heavyweight Taekwondo champion, wanted me to train him. I said, yeah, I'll train you, but I tell you what, I'll train you, you train me. When I had World Gym, we had a boxing trainer at the gym, a guy called Paul Fitzsimmons. He was an Olympic, the women's Olympic coach.
Yep.
So, I did some boxing with him. So I was always trading off, and it was always with some of the best of the best. And then we had the gym I was working at the time. We had a guy called Wayne Viaga, who was a 7-time New Zealand heavyweight Muay Thai kickboxing champion. Nicest guy in the world, and a very good friend of mine now. And after I'd come back from doing the Tampa and Dallas Pro, I was oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I was just outclassed. How much money I spent to go there for what I got back out of it. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this again. I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said to me, man, I used to just do one-on-one sessions with him every now and then. A couple might do one a week, and then I might do a couple a week, and because he was in the gym. Hey, Wayne, you got a client? No, can I do a half-hour session with you? Yeah, no, go get your gloves. He goes, why don't you get in the ring, bro? Big island boy, get in the ring, bro. I'm like,
Get in the ring, bro.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, man, I'm going to do it. So I trained 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day, for 12 months.
Oh,
until we
wow.
until we could get a fight. So, and I had a bit of trouble getting a fight because people would take one look at a photo of me, and
I agree.
would be like, yeah, and it was hard finding that heavyweight. So I needed to find someone that was a heavyweight, and so I finally found someone, but they wouldn't fight me if I was over 100 kilos. So I had to diet down to get under 100 kilos before the fight could happen.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and I ended up fighting in a fight which was called Deadly Debuts, which was you could be a maximum of 3 times in a ring. So this guy had fought a couple of times. So I was my first time in the ring, and it was actually not a judged bout. It was just, unless you knock someone out, of course.
Yeah.
So it was three round bout. I had him in the first round. He clocked me a beauty in the second round. Really fucking, I was like, stay up.
Wow.
And in the third round, I pretty much had him as well. So at the end of it, he was like, oh, bro, he said, your kicks, man. Because I big powerful legs. So, and you look at the video, there's a video of it, and it's funny. He just goes around and around and around anti-clockwise because I caught him with a roundhouse, with my right leg roundhouse, and he got it on the thigh. So I just basically was chasing him around and around the ring this way. But he was a short, nuggety little guy. So it was good fun. It was a great experience.
Now, another thing I've never done is go in the ring. I don't know what I do, Chris. I don't know, guys. What am I doing? I just seem to do podcasts. But definitely, maybe one day on the stage, maybe one day in the ring. Who knows? So yeah, fair swap with you and your missus. You can get a motorcycle. She can't get an automatic.
No, I said she can. No, you got that back front. I said she was allowed to. Since she let me get the Ducati, I would let her buy a RoboVac.
Oh, I got a feeling like you just said she asked you for the Robo. I thought she asked you for the RoboVac, and you go, no way, we're going to spend money on a RoboVac. And you said, look, I feel like getting a Ducati. She said, yeah, go get your Ducati.
Yeah. No. I said that she could buy the RoboVac, so she was very, very pleased.
Yeah, it's a nice bike, man. It's a very nice bike. Obviously, you like riding, and also you breed dogs, or you breed a dog breed.
Yes. So we breed Brussels Griffons.
I've never heard of this dog.
Yeah, they were originally a ratting dog. So they were bred for ratting in Brussels, hence the name, Brussels Griffins. And they come under a rough coat and a smooth coat. We've got a couple of both. Unfortunately, our breeding probably is going to be stopped for a few years because we did get a dog that we were going to breed with. She was also a show dog. She's a beautiful little thing, but she ended up having some issues with her knees, and then we found out she's had hip dysplasia. So we won't be breeding with her. So, but unfortunately, that means our house is a little bit full with dogs at the moment. And before we breed dogs, our dogs are our babies before anything else.
Yeah.
So at the moment, 4 dogs. It's a bit like we really don't have the space at the moment for another dog. But as soon as we do, we'll probably get another dog. And bought them from New Zealand from a friend of ours, and probably then start the breeding process again. But these dogs only have about 3 puppies per litter, so it's a passion project because you're definitely not going to make any money. It's the time you pay for everything.
It has to be. So you've is it recent years? I've just got to ask this. I don't know, but you've got this remedial, you now focus on remedial and advanced rehabilitation massage. How long has that been going on, or has that always been a thing?
So I started studying that about 2 years ago. So it's something that I've always been interested in. And people used, you get clients, oh man, I'm looking, my shoulders a bit sore, and you'd get in, you'd have a feel around, and how does that feel? And, oh man, that's good, man. You've got great hands. You should be a massage therapist. So yeah, about 2 years ago, I went, you know what? I keep talking about doing it, and it was always, I don't have time, because it was 2 days a week full time. So it means taking a couple of days a week off work, and it was 12 months. So, so it was going to give me a bit of a hit in the ass pocket to actually do the study. And I just bit the bullet. Went, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And so yeah, fully qualified. So high caps, so I can people that are can claim their health insurance rebates and stuff like that. Yeah, I enjoy it. It won't become my full-time gig because it's a lot harder on the body than you probably give it credit for.
Really?
Yesterday I did 5 hours of massage, pretty much close to back, and by the end of it, all I want to do is flop down on the chair and do nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I've got a shoulder. This shoulder I need a full shoulder replacement.
Yeah.
I pretty much said there's nothing we can do for your shoulder until we do a replacement on it. So at some point, I'm probably not going to be able to dig that shoulder for an extended period of time. So there will be a period where I'll have to back away from it. But the way I look at it, it's something that I can just have sitting there. It makes in a few extra dollars, which is good. I do enjoy it. I enjoy revisiting anatomy and physiology, which was, it was 30 years ago since I was sat in a classroom and learnt that sort of stuff. So, I've got my posters on the wall, so I can, when I'm working on someone, I can look at exactly where I am and where am I massaging and where are the insertion points and the origin points and what movements is that. So it's something I do enjoy, and I think it's made me a better trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, are we going to see you on the stage soon?
Look, as I've said, I wouldn't bet my house on it, but I have said I wouldn't compete again. But I did say, you know what, I sort of came out because it was 30 years since I first competed, and I was coming up to 50 years old.
Yeah.
And, who knows, maybe when I'm coming up to 60 years old, I might do it. I might go, fuck, I'll do it again. I would never say never. It's sort of my safe space. As weird as it sounds, it's my safe space.
Yeah. No, well,
but it does also take a toll. It takes a toll on business for a short period of time. I have 6 weeks of the year where I can't function. There's also, it takes a toll a bit on the relationship. I become a bit of a grumpy old bastard.
Yeah.
And it would only ever be done with the approval of the boss.
The boss. Yes.
But it's in saying that, we don't stop each other doing what we want to do and need to do. Well, she says I need another dog. We get another dog.
So before we go over the body, I'm going to go over the body. So you mentioned you were married, and I'm assuming you're married now, second time, correct? Yep. And
I like practice.
All right, third time. So tell me, what's the secret? Tell me what the secret is to failure, and then tell us the secret to success, because I've failed once. I've only been married once. I haven't married again. I wouldn't mind getting married again. And why did you get married again? Just quickly before we go over the body.
Trust. Just, you know, Julie is my best friend.
Really?
If there's one person I want to spend time with, it's Julie. I never once go, oh man, I wish I could just go hang out with the boys and not, you know, she's annoying me. It's just trust. It's very different. And when there's so many aspects. I mean, when I was young, you know, if we had a week without having a shag, you'd be like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah,
What's going on?
true.
You know?
Yep, true. Good call.
You know, when you get to a point, you know, with this age where that's not as important. There is so many other levels and things that are important to that.
So
and
true.
I think, you know, that's the most important thing. But she is my best mate, and we have the same values. We've been brought up in very similar upbringings and backgrounds. So when I go off the deep end, she doesn't freak out and go, oh my God, you know, you're so aggressive. She just goes, I've seen worse. You know,
yeah.
When she goes off the deep end, I, you know, sort of laugh at her and tell her to calm down, you know. So you know, if you put my parents and my in-laws in the same room together, you would actually think that they were two brothers and two sisters.
Yeah.
So we just have a very similar upbringing, and it's worked. Where past I've had partners that have had very different sort of upbringings to me.
Yeah, so similarities seems like it's very important.
Yeah.
Certain values, but like you said, trust is really important. And I think the final thing that I got out of that, and which I had to learn myself, which, I mean, I've only been married once and failed at that, but I haven't married again. But I think we emphasize, which is maybe helpful for many people to listen, we seem to put sex at the top of the relationship chain, let's call it, when that's not just it. There's everything else at the top of that chain. And if you don't make sure it balances out accordingly, because sex is very important, of course. But what we're talking about is communication and, like you said, hanging out, knowing you enjoy having dinner with them, you enjoy a conversation with them, you enjoy that walk, and you don't put anything above anything else, and sometimes not putting that above everything else and making sure it's just below the line there, just hovering around.
Yeah. Yep. If there's someone I want to have coffee with, if there's one person I want to sit down and have coffee with, it's my wife. You know?
Yeah, I like that. That's what I would like.
And she lets me be me. You know, she doesn't really like motorcycles. You know, she lost a family member to a motorcycle, but she knows it makes me happy. So she lets me ride. You know?
Yeah. Oh, look, I think let you ride. That's how it is, and you let her get a Robo Samsung vacuum cleaner. I mean, I think
absolutely
it's perfect.
I'm a very giving man.
We don't want to. Yeah, let's close that one off quickly before she wakes up to this plot. Let's go over the body. We're going to go over the body right now. Okay. So I'm going to give you a body part. All I want is an exercise, sets and reps. So it's very simple. My
favorites.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I mean, you'll understand what I mean by that is, but like I said, we'll start with traps. Do you train traps? And what would be a trap exercise?
I actually don't train traps.
Yeah, man. Not many people do train traps.
No.
I know.
Because so many people get imbalanced with them. So, and then, you know, the amount of people that I see can't do a lat spread because their traps want to take over.
Really?
And the traps work. Yeah, the traps work and everything. With most other things anyway. So yeah, I personally don't do it. I don't train traps. Occasionally I'll do some traps for shits and giggles.
All right, no, let's not. People, I mean, you're one of many, but like I said, it's surprising. But delts, outer delts.
I just love a good overhead press.
Yeah.
I'll alternate for me an unsupported alternating one arm dumbbell press.
Nice. A bit more towards the back of the shoulder, back of the neck, or more forward.
No, look, because I've got crook shoulders, I tend to bring my arms through here, so it's more like so.
Yeah, sets and reps.
All of them.
Okay, all of them. What do you mean by sets?
So sets, we're probably looking anywhere between 4 and 5, and reps, all of them. Pick up a weight until I can't do any more.
Okay, till failure.
And whether that be you know, a heavy weight where I can do 8 reps, or whether it's a weight where I'm doing 20 reps. You know, and pretty much most things I train out. I have my theory with reps is like a budget. It's like a business. I set a budget. For me to break even, I need to do 8 reps or 10 reps, whatever I decide. But once I achieve budget, I don't close the front doors of the shop and go, oh, we don't need to open for the rest of the month. I go, all right, I've made budget. Now we're into profit. And now if I go too much ahead, so let's say I go, I'm going to do 10. I want to aim for 10. So I'll see, and I get to 10, I blast through the 10, and all of a sudden I do 18. I go, set my budget too low, set my weight budget too low, increase the weight. Go again.
I like that. I like that idea. That's very good. I'm going to use that. What about front delts?
Oh, look, for me, delts, medial delt, front delt, I'm essentially, if your front delt and your medial delt are working, they're working together. So, I would differentiate from a rear delt perspective.
Yeah, I've got to say next is rear delt. Go rear delt.
Yeah, so rear delt. For me, it's actually an exercise, a Charles Glass exercise, which is getting on a dual pulley lat pull down. Excuse me, it's a bit warm here.
That's all right.
But you basically lean back. I won't lean back on this chair, and with the dual pulley, you pull out.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but
you're talking about ropes?
No, just couple handles. So we've got a lat pull down in our gym, which has 2 pulleys. So you can.
Oh yes. I know which one you're talking about.
I spin around the other way, and I almost lie back on it. So I'm on about a 45 degree angle. And then if you think about a dumbbell fly, like this, all I'm doing is the opposite, pulling back.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do that. I like that. We got one of those machines at the gym, but I never thought about reversing myself around it.
Spin it around. The pad that goes over the knees, lift that up a little bit. So it gives you basically like a roller to roll over, and you roll your lumbar over it. So your chest try and get your chest as supinated as it possibly can. And then just think about the movement you would do for a incline fly, but you just do the opposite.
I love it. All right. What about lats? Back.
My favorite machine is actually exactly the same machine, and again, it's just a close grip pull down, but I pull down to the bottom of my rib cage, so the arc comes through this way. So rather than that, the arc is more that way. So I've sort of got that, adduction as well.
You're very thick, mate. You're very thick. Not mentally. I'm saying very thick person. You got thick. You're very wide.
From a chest.
You got thick. Yeah, you're very side on. You got some thickness in you, man. It's pretty good. It's all
the years of bench you.
No. You got big chest, big rear delts. In your arms. You're a fucking big guy. What about chest?
Incline barbell press. My favorite.
Incline barbell press, huh?
Yeah, I've always
you go to
flat bench gives my shoulder a bit of grief, and bench it doesn't. I've actually incline bench more than what I have ever flat benched.
Okay.
And then when I was in my last competition, I did this wee thing where I would start with incline barbell press, and I'd work my way up to about 160 kilos on the bar, do somewhere around sort of 6 or 7 reps, and then I would deload it to 100 kilos, and then I'd just do as many reps as I could. Just sit there and I'm full range. So it has to touch my chest, like everything's full range, and I would just basically like that. And that was just every time I did chest, that's what I did. I was like, I've got to see how many reps I can get out on an incline bench press at 100 kilos at the end of my working sets.
No, I like that. Bicep.
An exercise I could actually call a Heath curl, because I saw Phil doing it when we had him for the seminar, and he just had his hernia done, so he wasn't training, but he just went and picked up some dumbbells and was just fucking around, probably just pumping his arms up, which is it's a dumbbell curl where you actually come up, you do a hammer curl with a dumbbell, and then lean into a bicep curl. Hammer curl, bicep curl. Now that's classified as 1 rep. That's 1 rep.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go particularly, and you keep the tempo up. So it's like that, and biceps just blow up when I do it. So I really like it, because I don't really like training biceps. I find them real boring. So I try and keep them as interesting as I can.
I find triceps boring, but triceps. Speaking about triceps,
I just love a tricep push down using I use B straps.
Yeah.
So and just that squeeze. I enjoy triceps most exercises actually, whether it be an overhead extension, a tricep push down, a skull crush. Actually, triceps is something I have a very good connection with, so I can get a pump very, very quickly. So even just sitting there with no resistance, I can pump my triceps up really well. So yeah, I think triceps, I just have that really nice connection with them.
Very good. Forearms.
Don't train them.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just bringing them in because abs.
Don't train them very often.
Yeah, I haven't been training
So
for a
just,
while.
when I do them, it's just generally a hanging knee, a leg raise, like an L raise.
Oh yeah, Milos likes
Yeah,
those. Milos said the
yeah,
same thing.
yeah. I should train them. I should train them more, but yeah, I don't.
No, I haven't been training for a while. Um, well, Milos used to say, it was what he said, if you want a small waistline and building muscle is supposed to be growth, he used to say, take it easy on your abs. So,
Yeah, I take the same thing. I had an athlete, um, Kate, who was a pro back in New Zealand, and she had used to be a powerlifter, strong woman, done CrossFit, beautiful shape, but she did have quite a thick midsection. And when we were getting her ready for the 2019 Legions over in LA, I took in her program and I took out all deadlifting and was very careful with her abs because she was, she would get very
yeah.
chunky through the core. And we got her waist to come in, because she, wasn't activating it, bloody doing tire flips and deadlifts and stuff like that.
Milos told us that as well. Quads.
I've always loved squats. Unfortunately, these days my knees are getting a bit older, and I've got no real major knee problems so far. Touch wood. I do have a bit of a lower back issue, so that tends to get aggravated. So what I find is what my legs can handle, my lower back can't,
Yeah.
and also the shoulder these days, just getting that back to the bar. So I was an avid squatter probably up until 42, 43 years old. And I would say now my favorite exercise is a pendulum squat.
Oh, that pendulum's it's like a ripcord. You just don't know when's it gonna go. Like you start at the top and you start going down. You think I'm gonna let go any moment now. But the pendulum's quite good, isn't it?
Oh, I love the pendulum squat. Yeah,
I find it great for the sweep as well. It's got that real get down low, open up the legs. I do enjoy it too. Hammies.
I mean, I just probably seated leg curl, to be honest. I really like the seated leg curl.
I've just discovered RDLs, but learned how to do them right, and I feel they're pretty good.
Yeah. Look, I like RDLs. I did have a hamstring tear many years ago, quite a nasty one. Look, it put me out of action for a long time. I ended up with my leg in a brace and all sorts. I thought I completely ruptured it. So I've got to be honest, when I train hamstrings, I'm always a bit like, oh. And I've noticed since that time, which was around that sort of late 2000s, I used to have a very good side profile to my leg, just standing there normally. I still do when I'm posing, but when I'm just standing there, I've got quads and my hammies are a little bit flatter. And I think that, to be honest, is because every time I do any sort of hamstring movement, it's back in my head, I can just hear this rip, this pop. So a bit of a mental block there for hamstrings.
Oh, no, I get it. Calves.
I've been a little bit I trained my ass off of my calves probably up to I was about 35 years old, and then I hardly do anything on them. I'm a little bit blessed with calves. When I start getting ready for shows, as soon as I start walking or get on the push bike, my calves go.
Oh yeah.
My mum had big calves, and my dad had really lean diamond-like calves. So, but yeah, up until 35, it was just standing seated, But now I find that as soon as I start doing cardio, either on a bike or walking the streets, which is the two things I like to do. And I think I might have mentioned I was sort of quite handy on a bike when I was younger, so I can really engage my legs well, and my calves just blow up when I do cardio. Yeah.
What about? I mean, I'm going to say tibialis only to sound technical. I do it on purpose.
Well, I actually have a slightly overdeveloped tibialis anterior. So, yeah,
oh my God! Yeah, wait a minute, that's huge.
My feet just took off on me. So I actually have problems with that. You can see there it actually.
That is huge.
Yeah. So I actually have a lot of problems with my tib.
Great legs.
When I'm doing cardio, it blows up. So I have to actually spend a lot of time massaging it and being very careful with it.
Okay, and what about glutes?
Now you had was it on your podcast that Lee Priest was talking about glutes and talking about hip thrusts? And I've just loved what he said. So you want fucking big glutes? Go and do some squats.
Can we use that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of that stuff. A lot of that. Lee's. I've only ever sort of crossed paths with Lee like this, and a couple of comments on Facebook and Instagram, and I know he can be very controversial and so forth. And then sometimes I go, but he speaks the truth, and that's one thing I do really love about him. And there's been a few things he put on about training. And when it comes to training, he's fucking 100% on the money with all aspects of what he talks about when it comes to training.
Yeah. No, he said, go change your tampon.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty. It was pretty ruthless. And you know what's funny? We've the glutes has not only got us into trouble, but it's got us into places. And the funny thing is, we had Brett Contreras, who's the glute guy, come on, and anyway, he was great. He was great, like I said to you. But there is the one thing Brett did mention, and I'll let you know, that he said the hip thrust. I mean, I hope I'm quoting this correctly, but he said that the hip thrust and the squat come out equal. So even the squat can give you a great glute. So there's a lot of talk in that.
Look, there's a lot of people that have invented exercises. Yet, I've been training for 35 years, and I remember the hip thrust being done in pump classes back in 1992.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I crack up when I see someone on the hip thrust machine and they got like the hip thrust machine loaded up with 5 plates, and when I watch them squat 2 plates, it's like fucking diabolical disaster. I'm like, fucking, maybe you should spend more time under the squat rack and less on the glute. If it's good for my glutes, it's like, well, do you want to line my glutes up with your glutes on stage, and we'll see who comes out on top.
Well, Chris is gonna edit this nicely, and this is where I said we are going to become famous. This is where we become famous. So where can we find you, mate? Where do we find you? Social media? Where do they find you? Promote yourself now. It's time to talk.
Okay, so I'm just on Instagram, as everyone else is.
Mm-hmm.
So my Instagram account is just mike.d.performance.therapies.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where I'm sort of trying to cover all bases, being the therapist and the coach. I'm trying to promote my posing coaching business. When I say posing, it's like a different business. It's not. We've always done it, but now everyone's a posing coach.
Yeah. Go on. Yeah.
And pose, but let's be a posing coach anyway. And if anyone that goes and looks at any of the videos of me posing on stage, they can see that I put together a pretty mean routine, and it's well executed, and it's theatrical, and it's it's entertaining. And
you did Flash. You did Flash. Yeah. Savior of the universe. But to be honest, I saw that in you. I think everyone is not. I think everyone looks at posing as a key dollar, something to make some money on as well.
It's an easy way. Easy way of charging the same amount as what per hour as personal training, without having to really worry so much about a lot of the stuff that goes with it. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I know some good posing coaches, and they put a lot of time and effort into what they do. But if you've been on stage once, you've done one season, you cannot teach posing, because the likelihood is you haven't even fucking learned how to do it properly yourself.
I quietly somewhat agree, and I think some of you people, like you guys especially, that have done it day in, day out, and also been invited to be guest posers, guest appearance, that puts credit towards you. Obviously do something quite special up there for people to be entertained. And I think it's, like I said, yes. All right. So you're going to be taking on not guest posing. You're going to take on some posing.
For those that aren't my clients for getting ready for comps, if their coach, and some coaches don't really want to send you to Mike, because and this was probably where I am, probably tooting my own horn a little bit. for example, on the Sunshine Coast, there's no one has had as much experience as being on stage as what I have.
Right.
So sometimes to get another coach to go, hey, Mike, can you have a look at my clients posing? It's hard. I'm very professional as far as when someone comes to me that's got another coach, I don't talk about anything or that diet's wrong, that supplementation is wrong. You've come to, what do you think? Yeah, look, have a chat to your coach and see what they say. Yes, maybe you could be a little bit, come down a little. You've still got a few more kilos to go, but that's about it. So I'm hoping that some coaches that go, well, here's a guy that came out on stage at 49 years old and basically ran circles around his competition that were young, that are all about the same age as his daughter.
You did amazing.
Which and I can entertain, I can engage when I'm on stage. That's the thing. It's not just about standing up there and doing this. It's about, how do I look at the judges? How do I move? Which judge do I look at when I turn to the left? Which judge do I look to when I turn to the right? How do I position myself on the stage when I'm on the far left and the center, and I'm miles away from the center judge? All those sorts of things. The stage is only a foot high. The stage is 6 foot high. All those things change.
Makes sense.
Angle that, if we're on a stage that's only a foot high, then I'm pretty much going to stand the way I would stand as if I was posing in the mirror. If I'm on a stage that's 6 foot high, I then need to be posing down because there are the judges down there. If I stand like I was posing in the mirror, well then I'm not focused. So all those sorts of things, and a lot of posing coaches, I'm a posing coach. They know how to pose for their particular class because, again, just the way things have changed these days. Where when we started, when I started in bodybuilding, we grew with these classes. There was bodybuilding and bodybuilding. There was no figure, there was no bikini, there was no nothing. And we're going to introduce this figure thingy class. All right, we better learn how to do this. So we've sort of progressed and grown with the federation. But you get someone who's a bikini athlete. Done a few shows as a bikini, and then all of a sudden they're trying to teach a men's physique athlete how to pose, or a classic bodybuilder how to pose.
Yeah.
What do you know about it? Where when you actually look at bodybuilding, if done well, we incorporate all that stuff. When I turn and I'm standing here like this, turn to your right, I don't just do this. I do the hands that.
Yes, of course. It's got to be
whether that was a bikini athlete, turning to the rear. It's all the same. It's all that this hand movement stuff. So yes, some bodybuilders move like bloody
robots.
Cardboard, robots. But a good bodybuilding coach will be able to teach someone how to. I've had some really good success with some bikini athletes. And when people say, who taught you to pose? It's like, actually, Mike taught me how to pose. So, and I've got some girls that over the years, one in particular who's, won Queensland's, won Nationals, placed top 3 at the Arnold's in the Open. Who's your posing coach? It was actually Mike. He looked great in a size 11 pair of stilettos.
Well, a coach is a person that just can do it basically all, but do it properly, and has done it themselves. So I think I want to say thank you for coming on. It's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and see you on stage soon.
Only wiping the oil off the stage.
Good on you, mate. Thank you so much.
Too easy.
Cheers.